Out of nowhere, my eyes snapped open to find myself completely yanked away from Earth, like total magic. Yesterday, I was just some average 9-to-5 desk jockey. And today, boom, I'm chilling in a rundown straw shack tucked deep inside the Tianyu continent's Xuanwu Empire. After spending half a month low-key grilling the locals, I finally pieced together what went down with this whole situation. Turns out, another guy named Yichun used to live right here who was basically my literal twin, sharing my exact name and face and everything. My best guess, a classic parallel universe swap, where he got zapped to my Earth and I got dumped in his. Talk about a major vibe check. I inherited his entire net worth, consisting of one leaky straw hut, one barren dirt patch, and 5 silver coins stashed under a sagging mattress. Honestly, I'm practically bawling now. Except here is the part that honestly triggers me so bad. In every single transmigration novel I've ever binged, the protagonist always scores a cheat system or an op ability, or maybe some wise old master trapped in a ring. Meanwhile, I tried everything under the sun, shouting system activate, flipping over boulders, doing intense meditation, and even trying to swan dive off cliffs, but nada, absolute zero. Not a single magical cheat code in sight. It was just me, a rusty hatchet, and pure broke boy energy. But whatever, life goes on. I set up snares for wild rabbits, chop firewood, and somehow scrape by. Then one morning, I went to check my traps and hit the absolute jackpot. A plump, hefty gray rabbit caught fair and square. I was literally drooling as I strolled down to the stream to gut it, only to spot some dark silhouette sprawled out in the brush. My first gut reaction was bear, since the villagers had already warned me about wild bears roaming these peaks, and my skinny frame wouldn't even survive a single swipe. Yet the shape looked way too small for a bear, so I tiptoed closer, only to realize it was a woman, and not just anyone. When I rolled her body over, my brain literally short-circuited. She was hands down the most breathtaking human being I had ever laid eyes on in 2 lifetimes. Suddenly, her eyes flew wide open, glaring daggers at me like I was some kind of apex predator. Before I could even process it, she lunged forward, sending me into a total panic. My mind instantly raced to body-snatching possession, which is apparently an actual hazard in this crazy realm. I started screaming bloody murder and thrashing back, and well, let's just put it this way. What went down next definitely wasn't body-snatching. 2 hours later, I came to, sprawled flat on my back on the cold dirt, my vision spinning wildly and my lower back completely wrecked. She was completely gone, vanishing into thin air like a weird fever dream. Except my aching body was screaming that it was way too real. With my sore back throbbing, I hoisted the rabbit up and limped away from the mountain, muttering some pretty low-key profanities under my breath. That evening, my rabbit was finally cooked, and I was just chilling outside sipping my soup, when Big Dog and his 2 goons rolled up on me. Panicking, I quickly shoved most of the meat beneath a nearby rock and brought out a pathetic bowl with barely any soup or meat left. Big Dog shot one dirty look at the half-empty bowl, called me totally disrespectful, snatched it right out of my hands and shoved me down hard. That was my breaking point, since I'd already taken his crap twice. Screaming at the top of my lungs, I charged him. By nightfall, I was flat on my broken bed, my face swollen like a balloon and 0 rabbit meat left. They jumped me and cleared me out completely. My little rebellion achieved absolutely 0, save for some extra bruises, so I swore total revenge. I immediately started working out. After 2 solid weeks of training, I looked even scrawnier. Turns out working out on an empty stomach just makes you shed weight, which was honestly a massive plot twist. Then one morning, I swung my front door open and froze. The fairy goddess from the mountain was back, standing dead at my doorstep wrapped in her black robe, and staring at me with the weirdest vibe possible. Stammering awkwardly, I blurted, we. She bit her lip, glared at me like it was all my fault, and dropped. I'm pregnant with your child. Standing there frozen, my brain completely blue-screened. No system, no cheat codes, and no mysterious grandpas in sight. Yet the universe somehow decided to compensate me with a random wife. I'm pregnant with your child. My brain needed a full reboot. I had been single my entire life across both lives, never even having had a girlfriend, and now I was suddenly about to be a dad. You know what? I didn't even know I had that in me, literally. A child cannot grow up without a father, she stated with a straight face, sounding like a lawyer reading a contract. Staring down at her belly, something bizarre shifted in my chest. An entirely foreign emotion suddenly welled up inside me. So I looked right into her eyes and said, dead serious, I'll take care of you both. She slowly scanned my rundown yard, taking in the broken fence, the old straw hat, and the overwhelming aesthetic of extreme poverty. You could practically sense the intense regret radiating from her over every poor life choice that had dragged her into this mess. Yet she managed to keep her cool, simply stating my name is Zinujing. That precise second hit me. I had no clue what her name actually was. Smooth move, Yichuan. Absolute smooth brain play. Bringing her inside only made a bad situation look way worse. One wrecked table, one shattered bed, and that was literally it. The entire house was just that barren. A brand new bed was promised by yours truly before sunset. Snatching my axe, I sprinted straight for the firewood pile only to realize with absolute horror that I didn't own a saw. Cutting planks without a saw is impossible, but hey, genius strikes again. So a bunch of straight logs got lashed together like a makeshift raft, followed by me ripping one of my own doors right off its hinges to serve as the mattress base. After shoving and stress testing it, the thing actually held up. "I'm an absolute freaking genius," I proclaimed out loud. Palming her face in sheer disbelief, she slowly sank back down. Wooden pegs were hammered in tightly to act as legs, the door surface got scraped spotless, and this masterpiece was proudly lugged indoors. The cleaner bedding washed earlier was handed over to her, while the old worn-out stuff got repurposed for my raft bed. Standing right in front of her then, my grand life blueprint was laid out. Look, we just crossed paths and the little one was definitely unplanned. That's entirely on me, but I swear to you, neither you nor the baby are going to live through any suffering. Feelings can naturally develop before the bitter winter rolls in a legitimate brick house is getting secured for us by next spring. When the baby finally arrives, enough cash will have been saved up. And before the second year wraps up, we're ditching this village for a proper, thriving town. A long, piercing stare was fixed on me before her expression shifted by the tiniest fraction, resembling a frozen lake cracking by just a single millimeter. Immediately locking back into stone-cold mode, she muttered, "Fine, I'll wait." Headed up the mountain for some hunting was my next announcement, since a pregnant body desperately needs proper nourishment. And honestly, she looked way too frail, and skinny life must have dealt her a seriously rough hand prior to this. Her eye gave an involuntary twitch, as I casually mentioned being an orphan. That's what she coldly dropped, earning a knowing nod from me as if I'd already guessed it. "No wonder you're built like a twig. Yesterday's rations are completely gone, so stay put right here while I track down some food." Stepping out the threshold, a crucial detail popped back into my head. Spinning around quickly, I warned her, "Don't step foot outside. Annoying local punks love roaming around this village, and you're way too gorgeous for them to catch sight of trouble is definitely coming their way." She muttered, a deep frown carving into her forehead. "What's a guy lose? Oops, my bad." Slinging some vintage slang straight out of my old universe. She gave a little nod as I explained, "That's just what we call local hoodlums around these parts." Out of nowhere, she pivoted and fired off a question. "Would you actually step up and defend me if they tried to push me around?" Immediately, I puffed up my bony ribcage, stretching my malnourished spine as straight as gravity would allow, and gave my completely flat chest a resounding slap. "You're my wife now. If anyone even thinks about messing with you, I'll throw hands with their ancestors straight back for 8 generations. Securing the gate and grabbing my trusty axe, I bolted up the mountain path like a guy on a serious mission. Because let's be real, I actually am on one now. There's a wife waiting at home with an empty stomach to fill. I'm officially a family man. I grumbled under my breath while power walking up the trail. No more playing around. It's time to chase that bag and hustle hard for my little wifey. Gotta figure out the blueprints for building a solid brick house, too. Reaching my traps, I inspected them one by one. Empty, empty. Completely empty everywhere you look. Total ghost town. Normally, I would have just laughed it off with a shrug, but the stakes are different now. Now, I've got a pregnant woman sitting back in my straw hut, patiently expecting dinner, and the pressure was hitting me heavy. Please, higher powers, let there be something, anything in this last trap. I'm a married man with responsibilities now, have a heart. I sprinted toward the final trap, a dugout pit where all the concealing branches had been violently shoved aside. Something definitely fell down in there. Rushing to the edge, I peered over the drop and almost shed tears of pure hype. It was a wild boar. A massive, plump unit tipping the scales at easily over 100 jin. Throwing my hands up to the sky, I hollered out a massive "thank you." Down in the hole, the beast was aggressively grunting and clawing at the dirt walls, desperately trying to scale its way out after struggling all night with 0 success. "Nice try, piggy. Sorry, little guy. It's nothing personal, just survival." Snapping off a tree branch to fashion a makeshift spear, I locked eyes on the boar's neck and drove it downward with everything I had. The branch instantly splintered in half, leaving the animal with barely a scratch, while I nearly pitched headfirst into the pit myself. Dusting myself off, I spat onto my palms, pointed my axe straight at the pig, and declared, "You really thought I couldn't beat you?" Time for plan B. Using a sturdy piece of rope, I lashed my axe securely to a long branch, making sure to keep a tight grip on the tail end of the cord. "You won't fool me twice." With a fierce grunt, I swung it down with brutal force. This time, the blade bit deep into flesh, sending dark blood spraying everywhere as I hacked away like an absolute maniac. 15 minutes later, the wild boar finally went completely limp and still. Without missing a beat, I plunged down into the pit, secured the rope around it, and hoisted the massive carcass up. Weighing well over 100 jin, the dead beast crushed straight into my spine. My face flushed bright crimson, while my legs trembled uncontrollably. Yet I forced myself to start trekking down the mountain. Across 4 or 5 treacherous li of steep mountain trails, I barely dragged myself about 1 li before collapsing flat on the dirt, drenched entirely in cold sweat and smeared with thick pig blood. I gave off an absolutely repulsive stench. My lips were badly split, and my complexion was ghostly pale. Every single time, I pictured my wife waiting back home for me. Fresh adrenaline kicked in, allowing me to catch my breath and march on. 2 grueling hours later, I finally stumbled into the village, hauling this absolute unit of a monster. Holding my head up felt like an impossible feat, and my chapped lips felt ready to burst open. Dragging 100+ jin down a rocky mountain path, the old version of me would have totally cashed out halfway. Suddenly, lifting my gaze, I spotted figures lingering right outside my gate. My stomach dropped instantly, but I forced my blurry vision to focus to see my wife standing dead in the doorway with an icy glare. Right standing beside her were Big Dog and his 2 absolute clown brothers. Something inside my mind completely snapped. You guys seriously dare to mess with my wife? No clue where this sudden burst of fury came from. Seeing that I was practically dead on my feet moments ago, I suddenly sprinted forward, carrying 100 jin boar on my back. Dropping the heavy animal hard onto the ground by the front door, I drew my trusty axe and planted myself squarely between my wife and those 3 punks. Did they lay a hand on you? Get inside right now. I've got this handled. Big Dog and his crew weren't even paying attention to me. Instead, they were locked onto the giant boar with their eyes practically bugging out of their sockets. Turns out they had wandered over earlier just out of sheer boredom. Kicked my fence down and caught sight of my wife inside. Even though she had purposely disguised her features to look like nothing more than average within this isolated, backward village, passing for average might as well make her look like a runway supermodel naturally. These 3 total morons immediately tried to harass her. Little did they know, she totally had the capability to wipe out all 3 of them using just a single finger. Keeping my parting words strictly in mind, however, she held back her power and simply shoved them toward the entryway, mostly just curious to see how I would react. Holy crap, Big Dog bro, this wild boar is easily over 100 jin. Eating good off this could easily last us half a month. Charging straight toward the prize, the 2 smaller hounds rushed my way. Get your hands off it, that's my kill, I screamed at the top of my lungs. You want meat? Smirking widely, the biggest mutt slapped my face hard. Go hunt your own. Getting brave again, huh? Guess you missed your beating. Raising my axe with a violent shove, I fired back. You want this pig? Over my dead body. Over my dead body. All 3 of them cracked their knuckles and necks right then and there, grinning ear to ear like they were about to enjoy a total vibe. Turning my head, I looked back at my wife. My face was completely ghost white, and my lips were bleeding and cracked. Covered head to toe in thick blood and sweat, I honestly probably smelled like a literal crime scene. Yet forcing a gentle smile through the pain, I whispered softly, just go inside. I've got this handled, and I won't let them lay a finger on you or the pig. Then pivoting around quickly, I hoisted my heavy axe and charged straight at all 3 of them like a madman. You 3 wild dogs, come get some. Let's settle this right now. Flashing a cocky grin, Big Dog effortlessly dodged my wild swing as if he'd been doing this routine his entire life. Which, to be fair, he probably had. 1 brutal punch straight to my gut later, I folded instantly like a lawn chair. Before I could breathe, his 2 brothers jumped into the fray, mercilessly kicking me while I was down in the dirt. The heavy axe was violently knocked right out of my grasp. Look, I'm normally not this useless in a fight, but dragging a massive 100-pound pig down a steep mountain took everything out of me. Literally, I had 0 gas left in the tank. Even while pinned to the ground and getting brutally pummeled, I kept screaming at the top of my lungs and fighting back. Every single time my wife and unborn child popped into my head, a crazy wave of desperate energy surged through my veins. Shoving the 3rd dog viciously off my chest, I scrambled up to my feet and started throwing hands with the 2nd one. Knowing I couldn't possibly take on all 3 at once, I picked a single target and went all in as the 3rd dog stumbled back up. Sporting an ugly grin, Big Dog grabbed my fallen axe off the ground and swung it directly at my head. And then something insanely bizarre happened. Suddenly, my entire body flushed burning hot, feeling precisely as if I'd been directly plugged into a live power outlet. Raw, surging strength exploded through every muscle in my body. I punched the 2nd dog so hard he went flying backwards, literally airborne. Duck-dodging the incoming axe sweep, I grabbed Big Dog tightly by the wrist, kick-launched him clear across the yard, and snatched my axe right back. As the 3rd dog came charging back at me, I smeared my bruised, swollen face into the most terrifying, unhinged smile I could possibly pull off. He froze dead in his tracks, but I didn't give him a single second to think, kicking him down hard. I instantly flipped the heavy axe around and slammed the flat side down onto his arm with a loud, satisfying crack. Howling in pain, all three of them writhed on the dusty ground. Towering right over them, I kept my expression ice-cold. Consider yourself lucky I'm letting you walk away today. If you ever cross paths with me, or my wife again getting a broken arm, is going to be the least of your worries. FR. Now get lost, as they scrambled off like terrified street dogs, not even daring to head back toward the village. They had played the neighborhood bullies their whole lives, so how could they possibly show their faces looking this pathetic? Refusing to turn around right away after they bolted, I stood there frantically trying to fix my messy hair, instead knowing full well my wife was watching from the porch, while I looked like absolute garbage. Gotta maintain some low-key dignity. You know, you said you wouldn't let them touch me, or the pig. Her chilling voice drifted from behind me. So in your mind, I'm pretty much on the same level as livestock. Ice ran straight down my spine. Hands flying up, I spun around in a panic. No, no, no. That is so not what I meant at all. Then what did you mean? I meant that you're pregnant, so you shouldn't be stressing out like that. Plus that pig is for your nutrition, because if they steal it, you don't get proper food, and that's majorly bad for your body. Those are two completely separate things. I swear she stared right through me for a long moment, then turned on her heel and walked back inside without a single word. Spotting something new, I noticed she was sitting on a brand new wooden chair that definitely hadn't been there before. Wait, did you actually make this? That's low-key amazing. But hey, leave all the heavy lifting to me from now on. You just focus on resting up and keeping healthy. I've got everything totally covered. She looked like she wanted to say something, but stopped herself. An awkward silence hung thick across the yard. Rubbing the back of my head, I'm gonna go take care of that pig. You should probably head inside, since butchering is pretty graphic, and totally not something a lady should be watching. She retreated indoors without uttering a sound. Stretching my limbs out, a weird realization suddenly hit me. A strange warmth radiated inside my chest, and my aches barely hurt anymore. Super bizarre, but I wasn't about to complain. Flashing a grin at my wife's silhouette, I immediately got to work. Dragging the heavy pig into the yard and grabbing my wooden bucket, I hollered toward the house. I'm heading out to fetch some fresh water. It's roasting out here. So stay inside and don't get sunburnt down at the village well. I was dipping my bucket in when Widow Lou suddenly appeared. Catching sight of my battered face, she rushed over looking super concerned. Oh my God, Chun, did Big Dog beat you up again? Does it hurt bad? Let me wipe that for you, she cooed, lunging toward my face, and I dodged her like she was a total venomous viper. A proper distance must always be kept between a man and a woman, though she just let out this super cultured laugh. Why don't you come live with me? I've got 3 whole acres of land, and I could easily sponsor your schooling in town. Who knows, you might even crush the exams and become a big-shot official. Hard pass, I'm a married man now. Her jaw literally hit the floor, and instantly she flipped to talking mad trash. Is it that Widow Wung from the opposite side of the village? She isn't even half as pretty as me, and let me spill the tea. Big Dog and his crew roll up to her place every other night. I rolled my eyes so violently they almost got permanently stuck. For the record, my wife isn't from around here. She hails from the next village over. Plus, we've already got a bun in the oven, so take your low-key drama elsewhere, please. Grabbing my bucket, I bolted. Several grueling trips later, the water tank was finally filled to the brim. Glancing up at the blazing sun, I realized it was almost 1 o'clock. Sneaking a peek into the house, I called out with a touch of awkwardness. Chin Chin Yu Jing, are you hungry yet? She slowly lifted her gaze to my swollen, purple-bruised face, her lips twitching slightly. Not hungry, I chuckled, shaking my head. Don't even try to lie to me. You've been sitting here since sunrise and it's practically 1. Even I'm starving and I'm a grown guy. Just hang tight, because I'm about to butcher this pig and whip up a stellar soup for you. I swiftly sharpened my blade, wiped the wooden table spotless, slapped the pig right on top, and drove the knife deep, blood gushing everywhere. Scrambling to catch it, I thrust a bucket underneath. Hey, pig blood is solid food too. We can't afford to waste it. Though I only managed to salvage half a bucket, seeing as most of it had already leaked out back on the mountain. My shirt was completely stiffened with dried pig blood, so I ripped the damn thing off right then and there. Standing shirtless, I literally looked like a walking skeleton with barely 2 ounces of muscle taped on. Catching my wife glancing in my direction before instantly averting her eyes as if witnessing something physically painful, I muttered, "Yeah, I get it. Half a month of intense workouts with 0 actual food will definitely do that to a guy." I set to work hacking up the pork as fast as humanly possible. Sure, it was my first time, but come on, I'd watched the pro butchers operate back at the meat market on Earth. How hard could it possibly be? I scooped out the entrails, washed them thoroughly, and tossed them into a clean bucket. Thank goodness my predecessor left behind multiple spare buckets. Now that's a legacy worth having. My kitchen knife definitely couldn't hack through those thick bones, so I grabbed my trusty axe and started hacking away, bellowing 80-80 with every single swing 80. My wife was standing right in the doorway, staring at me with a super confused frown. She had zero clue what was going on, and honestly, neither did I. It just felt totally right into 6 massive chunks is how I cut up the pig before I grabbed a rear leg and sprinted over to my kitchen. And I use that term very loosely. Bro, it's basically a grass shack featuring a sad little stove. The leg was tossed into a pot, along with some water plus a handful of wild ginger and mountain yam. I had just dug up a few green onions were chopped up and dumped in together with some dried herb powder which I'd been hoarding with 0 salt. Man, salt definitely exists in this world, but it's crazy expensive. So even the better-off villagers can only afford cheap, coarse salt straight from town. Seawater evaporating into salt is common knowledge. Except for one tiny little issue, there's no ocean anywhere near here, so herb powder it is, I guess. At least it hasn't unalived me yet somehow. Low bar, sure, but I'll take the W. I fired up the stove and hung the rest of the meat on the clothesline outside, so it could dry in the sun. Not having salt means I can't cure it. Otherwise, it'd rot indoors. Blood cakes were whipped up using the fresh blood, and the organs got prepped for a wild, awful soup later. Before I went ahead and washed my bloody clothes, all of this was watched by my wife in total silence. Her expression was completely unreadable to me. An hour later, the soup was finally ready. Smelling out of this world, I reached for the bowl singular because I literally own just one, and immediately facepalmed hard. This massive problem had completely slipped my mind. Filling it halfway with steaming soup, I piled on as much meat as the ceramic could possibly hold. My mouth was literally watering like crazy, but I carried it straight over to my wife anyway. You've got to be starving right now. Come eat, it smells insane. She sat down slowly, gave the bowl a long look, and then stared right at me. Why aren't you eating? Not hungry? Me? Nah, I'm good. You go ahead and eat first. My stomach let out a growl so loud it bounced off the bare walls. The quietness was super awkward, making me jump up with burning ears. Just eat. I'm gonna go carve myself a wooden bowl outside. We only have one single bowl at the moment, but I promise that's gonna change soon. Bolting outside into the yard, I tracked down a solid chunk of wood. I hacked it apart with my axe, then started carving out a bowl using my knife like my existence hung in the balance. Back inside, my wife picked up those chopsticks and just stared at them, then shifted her gaze to the bowl, back to the sticks, and once more to the bowl, acting like she'd never even seen utensils before. Apparently, it had been a hot minute since she'd last eaten. Returning with my janky little wooden bowl brimming with soup, I saw her still sat there and asked if the food was all right. I grabbed my own chopsticks, snagged a piece of pork, and tossed it into my mouth. My eyes went wide. This ancient world wild boar. It's different. It was straight up incredible. She was watching my technique closely, and within 2 seconds she was copying me perfectly. This woman is wicked smart. She took a sip of soup, and I noticed her expression soften just a fraction. I inhaled my portion in record time, while she was still elegantly nibbling away at hers, chewing every single bite like total royalty. Meanwhile, I'd been scarfing mine down like a dumpster-diving raccoon. Then, I dove beneath the bed. She turned around, looking totally confused. I crawled back out, clutching a wooden box, blew off the dust, and set it on the table with a huge, goofy grin. "Don't blink," I said, opening the box with some flair. Inside lay 5 silver taels, my entire life savings, which I'd found while shifting the bed earlier. They were leftovers from the original Yi Chun. I pushed the stash toward her, beaming. 5 whole taels. 1 tael buys 2 steamed buns, and since a tael is 1,001 coins, that's a mountain of buns. A house in town only runs about 3,000 taels. Okay, so we're still a long way off, but you're my wife now, so the money belongs to you. She stared at me, genuinely taken aback, not by how much there was, but because I just handed over, quite literally, everything I had to my name. "Aren't you scared I'll take the cash and bounce?" I paused for a sec, then smiled. "Nope, why would I be?" "No reason," she replied. My wife finished her meal, and I checked to see if she wanted seconds. She said no, but I could tell she was just trying to be polite, even though there was plenty left in the pot. I started on the dishes, and honestly, I was still feeling pretty hungry. The old version of me would have just kept eating, but now, there's a family for me to look out for. Every bite I take is a bite my pregnant wife misses out on. Saving it for dinner later, I securely snapped the lid back onto the pot, getting straight back to grinding. I started talking my master plan through out loud. Being only 24 gives me an absolute ton of time to stack that cash. Tomorrow is all about hitting the town to scoop up supplies. Offloading this wild boar meat shouldn't be a problem. Soup made from pig organs totally slaps. Honestly. Even the pig blood is good to eat, since literally every single part of a pig comes in clutch. Bagging another boar means way more profits, plus I know I can hand-make bricks. Somehow figuring out the brick-making process is totally within my reach. Rocking a solid brick house before winter rolls in is the main goal once we bank enough savings. Launching a town business is next. Oh man. Knowing how to brew booze means selling homemade wine is a major vibe. Supplying local inns or even opening our very own tavern could be huge. My hype levels were genuinely skyrocketing. By the second, jotting all these brilliant ideas down would have been ideal. But I had zero paper or pens lying around. So stuffing the entire business blueprint straight into my brain was the only play. Watching me ramble caused my wife's stern expression to relax just a tiny bit as she stood there quietly. Just a fraction slipping into a fresh shirt, I let her know a trip to the village chief's place was happening to ask about bricks, prompting a soft nod from her before even clearing the front gate. Widow Lu came barreling down like an absolute hurricane dressed up in clothes. Brushing me aside roughly, she stormed right into my yard, spotting my wife sitting inside the hut with her back turned. She locked her hands onto her hips and started screaming her lungs out. Where did this random wild chick even crawl from? Are there 0 guys left in your own village, so you gotta come steal ours? Yi Chin belongs to me, so get lost before I force you out. Slowly turning around, my wife guard right back at her with the most ice-cold stare that has ever been witnessed on a living person, taking in that intense face. Widow Lu clicked her tongue dismissively. Oh look, a little vixen rocking a pretty face, huh? Bet that is literally the only thing you are good for, is trapping men, you shameless piece. That is totally enough. Springing into action, I rushed over and shoved Widow Lu backwards. My blood was literally boiling over with rage. Not a single romantic history has ever existed between this woman and me. This is my actual wife, so you better apologize to her right now. Apologize, she barked while jabbing a sharp finger right at my nose. Just take a look at yourself. You are flat out dirt poor. Offering to take you in was supposed to be me doing you a massive favor. And this trashy attitude is how you repay me. Clenching my fist so tightly that my knuckles flashed pure white. Poverty might define my wallet, but my dignity is intact and charity isn't needed. Get out of here, you ungrateful little smack. My hand connected straight across her face. Never in my life had I laid a hand on a female until today. Those 9 years of mandatory schooling did absolutely nothing to prep me for this. Speak another syllable, and your jaw is getting shattered. Don't push me, she shrieked back, holding her flushed cheek as she bolted away in tears. Once she vanished, I finally relaxed my tight fists, exhaled deeply, and turned around with jittery nerves to check on my wife. I'm totally fine, she stated with her usual deadpan tone. Weren't you supposed to head over to the village chief's place? Go on. I gave a quick nod, let out a sigh, and sprinted toward the settlement. The crazy part is I haven't got the slightest clue what my wife gets up to while I'm away. If I actually knew, my brain would probably short-circuit. Because out of nowhere, the woman currently lounging on our broken bed inside our shabby straw hut effortlessly summoned a glowing rainbow fruit straight out of thin air, some kind of mythical artifact originating from a higher plane. She went ahead and consumed it, then channeled all that raw energy right into our unborn kid, just to guarantee our baby would inherit overpowered god-tier potential. She also whipped out a mirror, and not just any ordinary-looking mirror, mind you, but one she crafted by literally ripping the actual sky off a newly formed planet and hammering it into polished glass. Basically a lethal weapon capable of wiping out entire realms, yet she was casually using it to make sure her hair looked on point. Moon heavenly Tao, she queried while looking down at the tiny spirit dwelling inside the mirror. Is my aesthetic slaying? The trembling little spirit materialized, instantly measuring no bigger than a thumb as it bobbed its head frantically. Master reigns supreme as the most breathtaking entity in all of existence. Absolutely ethereal and main character vibes. Meanwhile, back in reality, I was jogging through the village covered in cuts, while mentally plotting how to hustle pig guts just to afford groceries. We are seriously living in completely different universes. I kept jogging toward the village chief's cabin, gently massaging my aching and swollen cheek along the way. As for those 3 feral neighborhood dogs, just you wait until my cultivation arc finally pays off. I am definitely glowing up. Auntie Zhang was standing outside her porch, cradling her baby. She caught sight of my beaten-up face and sighed. Got jumped by those strays again, huh? Those 3 absolute menaces are completely hopeless. Your uncle can't even keep them on a leash either. So there is no point in venting to him. Actually, that's not even why I came over here today. Winter is right around the corner, and my flimsy straw shack isn't going to survive the freezing weather. I desperately need to construct a legitimate house. Now, seeing as I have a wife to take care of, I can't let her freeze out there. Her eyebrows shot straight up in sheer disbelief. Little you locked down a wife from where exactly? From the neighboring village over, or so she claimed, before her expression softened just a tad. That was right when she hit me with the brutal reality check. Forget about rocking a brick house, kid. Just take a good look at these 2 tiny rooms of ours. They demanded over 10,000 bricks. Running you a cool 10 silver taels, that's what. You're way better off just chopping firewood. Just throw together a wooden shack like everybody else in town and call it a day. I glanced over at her humble abode, spanning maybe 50-something square meters at most. Me, I'm gonna need at least 100, which translates to 20 taels when I'm holding a measly 5. Yet all the way walking back home, saving up pennies for expensive bricks was the absolute last thing on my mind. Instead, my brain was totally fixated on flipping the script by manufacturing bricks for cash. 2 birds with 1 stone, baby. If I set up my own kiln and start pumping out batches myself, I'll hook up my own house first and cash out on the surplus. Growing up out in the countryside back on Earth definitely had its perks. I totally know the ins and outs of clay bricks. You dig up raw clay, mold it into shape, and bake it in a kiln. It's hardly rocket science, people. My eyes lit up instantly with a brand new hustle, and I sprinted back home fueled by pure adrenaline. Sitting dead silent on the edge of the bed was my wife, staring blankly into space. Seriously, this girl could sit completely frozen like a statue for hours on end. I dropped the news that we'd head down to town tomorrow to grab supplies and pick out some decent threads for her, seeing as my wardrobe didn't feature a single item fit for a woman. She gave a slight nod while resuming her empty stare, leaving me completely clueless on what to say next. So I defaulted to what I do best when words fail. I grabbed a heavy shovel, bolted out the front door, and immediately started tearing up the earth. If I'm seriously gonna manufacture bricks, building a proper kiln comes first. Prime clay deposits sit comfortably close by, making step 1 constructing the kiln, step 2 baking it dry, and step 3 launching full-scale mass production until I rule this mountain range as the undisputed brick king. The entire afternoon vanished in a blur of intense physical labor, hauling water, digging trenches, and molding a 2-meter-wide brick kiln structure. I stuffed the chamber full of firewood and fired it right up to bake the raw clay walls solid. Dinner consisted of warming up yesterday's leftover pork soup on the hearth. I handed a hearty bowl to my wife and polished off whatever was left in the pot. Without missing a beat, I headed straight back outside to resume kiln construction. Breaking her usual routine, my wife didn't tuck herself away indoors this time. Instead, she dragged a wooden stool right to the doorway and quietly sat there watching me grind. Reading her thoughts was an absolute guessing game. Her facial expression never once flinched, yet her stepping outside at all definitely felt like a major W. A cluster of pesky mosquitoes buzzed aggressively toward her, only to drift within a single meter of her body and instantly vanish. Poof, completely gone, as if they had never even existed in the first place, though I remained entirely oblivious, way too deep in the zone of shoveling dirt. Visioning my brick empire all day long until 9 or 10 at night, I was grinding away at the kiln. My lower back was absolutely screaming at me before the entire structure suddenly caved. Breaking the silence, my wife finally dropped. "What are you doing?" Out of pure reaction, I smacked myself right across the cheek with her eyes locked on me like I had completely lost my marbles. Inspecting my palm, I nonchalantly muttered, "Just a mosquito," as the damn thing buzzed off. She just stared right through me. Bricks cost way too much cash out here, so building my own kiln to bake them myself is the move. Sure, it flopped. But no biggie, I'll just run it back tomorrow. I'll definitely figure this out. Getting a brick crib built before winter is the master plan. I flashed her my most reassuring and charming. Rising slowly, she grabbed her little stool and said, "It's late, get some rest." My pulse did a quick little flip in my chest. Honestly, she's low-key stressing over me, which is huge progress recovering my composure. I asked if she wanted to wash up first. Silence was her only response, stripping down to my DIY underwear. I got to work dumping multiple buckets of freezing well water over my head out in the yard. I scrubbed my skin clean with my special shower ash, rinsing off the grime. I changed clothes safely behind a wall out of her sight. I felt like a totally new man. Stepping back inside, I caught her lying completely on her side. "Hey, you really ought to sleep flat on your back." I urged. Sleeping sideways could low-key cause trouble for the baby. "It's fine," came her flat, dry reply echoing from the shadows. Quenched by my breath, the oil lamp died as I settled onto my door-aft bed, staring up at the rough straw ceiling while mentally mapping out tomorrow's shopping list and business blueprints inside my head. Eventually, my exhausted body completely gave out and I crashed hard. Today had been a total and utter beatdown if not for that mysterious freak wave of strength during the brawl. Moving an inch all afternoon would have been impossible. I slept like an absolute rock, easily scoring the best sleep since landing in this wild world. Waking up right at dawn, I felt superhuman, as if someone had plugged my whole system into a fast charger overnight, stretching out my limbs. I was stunned to feel so shockingly strong. Bursting with pure energy, even my nasty bruises looked healed. Glancing over at my wife, who was still dead to the world, I smirked. No joke, this isn't a fever dream. I actually have a wife now. Tiptoeing outside, I knocked out some light morning stretches in the yard, splashed my face, and brushed my teeth using wood ash, taking down a slice of cured pork hanging on the clothesline. I prepped a hot pot of soup so it'd be ready when my wife woke up. A steaming bowl of meat soup would be waiting right there for her. This right here is what real domestic bliss feels like. While the broth was simmering away, something super weird caught my eye. Some random dude came hobbling out of the dense mountain forest, shouting at the top of his lungs like a banshee was after him. Dashing straight toward the village, he didn't even dare to look our way. Honestly, the guy looked an awful lot like Big Dog. No clue what was even going down with that. He probably just wiped out in some muddy ditch or something. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving jerk. After finishing up breakfast, my wife and I headed into town. Treading slowly behind me, she kept getting glances over my shoulder as I checked in on her. Noticing my worry, she hit me with a question. "Oh, you want to piggyback me the rest of the way? The settlement is kind of far, but fair enough, we were just hoofing it along." While walking down the dusty trail, two guys ahead of us caught my attention. Then out of nowhere, a cloth pouch slipped right off one of them. I totally missed it hitting the dirt, but I tripped right over the thing and almost ate asphalt. Snatch it up and unlacing it, my brain completely short-circuited. Gold, the entire sack was packed solid with gold. Hefting it in my palm, it felt like at least 100 taels. Blood rushed to my face, and my hands started trembling uncontrollably. Glancing over at my spouse, I stammered out, "Drop this gold right now." "I literally saw it fall out from those two dudes up ahead," she pointed out calmly. My gaze locked onto the pouch, then shifted to the pair walking away in the distance. Clutching it so tightly made my knuckles turn completely ghost white. My pulse was hammering in my ears. With this massive amount of gold, I could easily buy an urban estate. Every single thing could be provided for my wife and baby. Taking a deep breath, I cinched the sack shut, looked straight into her eyes and said, "This money doesn't belong to us. Giving it back is the only option here," and I bolted forward. After them, but a curveball from her stopped me dead in my tracks. "It's pure gold. Didn't you promise to hook us up with a house in town, launch a business, and take care of our family, right? We could pull all that off instantly using this exact cash, and absolutely nobody would ever trace it back to us." I stopped, pivoted, and walked slowly back to her side. Her eyes were locked intensely on mine. Placing both palms gently on her shoulders, I told her, "You're my partner, and I'll grind to give you a vastly better existence. However, this gold isn't mine, and it's definitely not earned honestly. Building our future on loot lifted straight out of someone else's pocket is a no-go. Sure, we're dead broke, yeah, but our conscience remains completely clean. And I need our kid to grow up fully understanding what a solid person acts like." Then out of nowhere, a brain fart hit me with a quick reach. I gently pinched her cheek for a sec. She froze up completely as a grin spread across my face before I spun around and bolted after those two dudes yelling, "Hey bros, you dropped your gold, your actual gold." Catching up to them, I handed it right back, then sprinted back to my wife completely out of breath upon my return. Her vibe was looking way softer, noticeably softer. For the very first time, I could swear I spotted the faintest ghost of a smile. Little did I know, and trust me, I wouldn't find out for ages, was that those two random guys and the gold were totally fake. She had conjured the whole illusion herself. Just to test if I would pocket the cash, she had firmly believed that everybody folds when greed comes into play, but I aced it. Some 2 hours later, we finally rolled into town. This was my debut visit here ever since I transmigrated. And honestly, the whole place gave off major historical movie set vibes. I was rubbernecking at everything like a total tourist. The living costs were savage, with rice and flour going for insane prices. Back in the village, I had picked up the fact that farmers rake in maybe 2 taels a year, while town laborers pull down a couple of copper coins daily. My stash of 5 taels was actually a pretty decent nest. Halting by a pork booth, I asked, "How much per catty?" "Fatty cuts 101 cash, ribs 120, bones 80, which made my jaw drop, giving the vendor a quick thanks. I hauled my wife away before I started drooling everywhere. "Did you catch those numbers?" I whispered in a rush. "Domestic pork is 101, so wild boars gotta command way more. That monster pig I bagged yesterday weighs upwards of 100 catties. After we set aside 20 for our own kitchen, we can flip 60 catties of meat for at least 5 taels. 5 extra taels means doubling my current net worth." Striding past a textile shop, I steered her right inside, emerging moments later with 2 brand new outfits for 301 cash. Ready-made clothes are an absolute ripoff, yet there was no way my wife could keep rocking that single black robe forever shortly after. I locked eyes on a stall peddling malt sugar candy. Dropping 10 cash for a hefty bag, I handed it straight to her. "Give it a try. It's actually low-key good." She stared at the treat like she had never laid eyes on sugar before. Slipping a tiny piece between her lips, her facial expression barely shifted at all, though. She offered a small nod. muttering, "It's sweet, pretty good." Provided you're happy with it, planning my upcoming gear while striding ahead, I left my wife trailing behind me clutching her little piece of paper-wrapped candy. And for what felt like the first time in a millennia, she experienced what it was actually like to just wander around with someone. Zero enemies to dodge. Zero schemes to stress over. Zero fights to pick. Just a goofy, scrawny dude buying her treats. "Eugene, let's grab an ox cart. The walk back is way too long and you've got a bun in the oven, so I'm not having you wear yourself out." She hit me with her usual whatever you say vibe. Stepping into the vehicle shop feeling like a responsible hubby. I walked out looking like an absolute clown. The cheapest bull on the lot, limping heavily on one leg, cost 10 taels, and with the cart it was 12. Only 3 taels were left in my pocket after today's shopping spree. But no cap. Once my brick hustle really blows up, 12 taels is gonna be pocket change. "We're getting a sweet ride soon," I reassured her while breaking a sweat. She gave zero reaction whatsoever. Roughly 2 taels total went into buying supplies before we headed back. Determined to treat her right, I decided we needed a proper feast. Stepping into a local inn, I ordered 5 dishes plus a soup, 3 meats, 2 veggies, alongside tomato and egg soup. That ran us 81, making my wallet scream in agony, yet my wife totally deserved a solid lunch. Watching her eat with total grace and elegance, I subtly slowed down the frantic pace at which I was devouring my own food. There was no way I could look like a total caveman next to this queen. Suddenly, 2 bulky dudes draped in fancy threads strode right through the entrance with blades strapped to their sides, their muscles literally flexing through their shirts. "Waiter, bring wine." One of them bellowed as they dropped down at the table. Opposite us and instantly started loudly discussing wild concepts like Savage Bull Force, the Blood Condensation Realm, and the Kai training stage. They casually hoisted massive jugs of Fireblade wine into the air and chugged it like regular water, leaving everyone else in the diner staring with their jaws practically hitting the floor. My mind straight up short-circuited. Cultivation? This world actually has cultivators. Does that low-key mean immortals exist here too? In literally every single transmigration novel I've ever binged, the protagonist always kicks things off as a regular nobody, then stumbles upon the secret world of cultivation, and boom, their overpowered cheat ability finally unlocks. Could this be the exact moment my golden finger finally decides to activate? I started eavesdropping so intensely that I totally forgot how to chew. Not a single word was uttered by my wife, though she noticed everything. A newfound appreciation seemed to be dawning on her, as if chowing down on food was low-key turning into her favorite pastime. Just as they looked like they were wrapping things up, patience totally failed me, prompting me to tell my wife I'd be right back. Over I strolled, flashing them my absolute friendliest grin. "Pardon me, big guys, but I accidentally eavesdropped on your chat. What on earth is a blood condensation realm, and what's this savage bull force?" A smirk crept across their faces as they eyed my rustic peasant clothes. Total country bumpkin, am I right? You can spot one from a mile away. Guilty as charged, man. It's my first time in the city and I'm totally clueless. Would you mind dropping some knowledge on me? You sound just like those pompous nerds down at the Literature Academy. And man, do I despise scholars, muttered the one named Zhao. Without missing a beat, he poured a bowl of Fireblade brew and slid it right across the table. "Down this in a single gulp, and you'll prove you've got a true warrior's spirit inside. After all, every single warrior is basically family. What do you say, kid?" My gaze dropped to the murky liquid. "I mean, come on, I used to down fiery Chinese Beiju back on Earth, so how much worse could this possibly be?" Snatching up the bowl, I chugged the entire thing with zero hesitation. Spoiler alert, it was nothing like Beiju. Swallowing it felt like taking a blazing sword straight down the throat. Instant numbness paralyzed my tongue while my brain totally short-circuited, leaving me trapped in a violent fit of coughing. Then just as abruptly, my head snapped back to crystal-clear sobriety, acting as though I hadn't touched a single drop. Total confusion washed over me. Am I low-key immune to alcohol? Could my special cheat ability, literally, just be holding my liquor? Seriously, what kind of useless golden finger is that supposed to be? Not gonna lie, kid, you've got some real guts. Laughing heartily, they clapped their hands and broke everything down for me. A basic military technique that literally anyone can master through army service is what they call the Savage Bull Force. As for the blood condensation realm, it's just the foundational cultivation tier, consisting of a total of 9 levels. Passing each level grants you the physical raw power of 1 extra bull. Maxing it out at 9 bulls worth of potent blood energy means you've officially beaten this realm. Step past that, and you reach the Kai training stage, though achieving it requires a special biological asset called a spirit root deep inside your body to siphon up spiritual energy. That's something most average folks simply lack. Every single scholar at the academy happens to possess a spirit root, which explains why they're enrolled there. Reaching into his pouch, Brother Zhao pulled out a jet-black testing stone and tossed it right at me with instructions to hold it and focus. Should you actually possess a spirit root, it'll instantly light up. Pure anticipation made my hands shake. This is it, the exact moment has finally arrived. Every single transmigrator is supposed to score something insane like a supreme bone, a sacred body, or a once-in-a-million-years talent. At the absolute bare minimum, I should be some kind of prodigy, right? Ever since day one, I've been waiting for this exact vibe. Eyes tightly shut, with every fiber of my being totally dialed in deep down. Inside, I was screaming for my golden finger to show up already, as the two warriors stood there waiting forever. While the magical stone did absolutely nothing at all, Brother Joe gently scooped it right back out of my palms, blinking my eyes open in total confusion. Wait a second, I wasn't even finished yet as he flashed me a pitying smile. Kid, if you actually possessed a spirit root, that rock would have lit up the second you laid a finger on it. You held it for ages without even a single flicker. Face it, you simply don't have one. Zero spirit root whatsoever, completely lacking a spirit root. My soul literally left my body, no spirit root, zero cultivation talent, and definitely no cheat ability. There is no system, and absolutely no mysterious old grandpa. The only reward I scored from crossing dimensions was accidentally hooking up with an impossibly gorgeous woman. And that is literally it. That right there is my entire golden finger, just a random one-night stand. Am I seriously just total trash? Brother Lou gave my shoulder a reassuring pat and tossed a compact little booklet my way. Don't let it get you down too much, man. None of us have spirit roots either. You know, that is exactly why we grind the warrior path through brutal body tempering. It's way harder, but warriors hit the hardest compared to anyone else at the same level. Here, take this copy of Savage Bull Force, and hey, seriously, if the warrior lifestyle isn't your vibe at all, there's honestly nothing wrong with just staying a regular civilian clutching the booklet. I mumbled a quick thanks and shuffled back toward my seat, looking like an absolute zombie during the trek back home. My nose was glued straight to the manual, reading every word while walking along. My wife slowed her pace down and drifted back to match my stride. Is cultivation really that deeply important to you? Glancing up at her. I offered a bitter grin and replied, obviously, if I could actually cultivate, I'd get you out of here to somewhere way better than this sketchy mountain village. I've heard people talking about orthodox and evil cultivation paths out there, she mentioned. So what's your actual take on that whole deal? I chuckled softly. Orthodox and evil, those are just pointless labels invented by bored folks with way too much free time on their hands, sure. They can say I'm totally lacking any talent for orthodox cultivation, but who cares if evil cultivation actually gets results? Why shouldn't I make use of it when doing good deeds is still totally doable for me? Does opting for a different method automatically turn someone into a low-key villain? Meanwhile, tons of self-righteous cultivators slaughter innocent folks out here. Are they still considered righteous? It's never about the specific path you're walking on. It genuinely comes down to your actual actions. Shaking off the weird vibe with a quick grin, I flashed a smirk and said, you know what, screw it, I can't cultivate, so what? At least I've got a gorgeous wife now. Living a regular life is totally fine. Once I stack up enough cash, I'll just be a wealthy, ordinary guy living my best life, humming a nostalgic tune from my past world. I marched ahead confidently. My wife fell dead silent right behind me for a solid stretch. Her expression was totally hidden from my view. But clearly something out of my mouth hit painfully close to home. The whole reason she's dubbed the Ninevi's Empress by everyone is because she actively practices what mainstream cultivation society demonizes as the dark path. She's caught heavy hate for it throughout her entire career. And here I was, a clueless mortal just vibing and casually dropping the exact words she desperately needed to hear. It was intensely hot, and the September sun was absolute brutal overkill. Lugging all our groceries while dripping in sweat made me look like a total mess. Turning back around, I suddenly noticed my wife looking completely pristine and chill, without a single bead of sweat on her. Aren't you even a little hot? She blinked and replied, hot. Staring right at her completely bone-dry face, I leaned over and playfully pinched her cheek again with a grin. Just checking in. She lightly touched her cheek the moment I turned my back and gave the ground a petty little stomp. This guy is definitely getting way too bold lately, yet what can she even do when she picked him out all by herself? Arriving back home, I collapsed tiredly, chugged some water, grabbed my trusty axe and dashed back up the mountain to check the traps, only to find absolutely nothing, not even a single small catch. Returning home empty-handed was completely out of the question, so I dug up a massive mountain yam, figuring it would do the trick. Yam soup hits different and tastes amazing, so I washed up the pig organs next, sliced them into pieces, and whipped up a rich offal soup loaded with fresh cabbage and noodles. Extra pots of it were prepared, because bright and early tomorrow morning, I'm borrowing the village chief's ox cart to sell this delicious grub down in town. Finishing dinner, I headed straight back to work at the kiln, taking all of yesterday's hard lessons into account for attempt number 2. This time things actually clicked and worked out, leaving me totally hyped up since the plan was set pedal soup in the early morning and churn out solid bricks in the afternoon, a brand new brick house in 3 months flat. Getting ready for bed, I suddenly noticed that my wife hadn't washed up in 2 whole days. Should I boil some water for you? Inside you can clean up while I watch the doorway out here, no peeking from me cross my heart. She turned her back and blanked me completely as I gave a casual shrug, letting out a heavy yawn before tossing the Savage Bull Force manual away to crash out unbeknownst to me back. Then my wife stayed wide awake just to monitor my slumber. Apparently she had been low-key slipping magical energy, crystals, the highest tier ones right under my bedding, even though a single one ought to sustain a normal person for years. Every single bit of it got absorbed by me in one single night. She was totally baffled since my zero cultivation talent had been proven by tests showing my physique is totally mortal. Yet somehow I was sucking down spiritual energy like a total vacuum. Another crystal was dropped into my bed by her choosing to stay up all night observing my breathing pattern, desperate to make sense of whatever was going down. Meanwhile, the tiny moon spirit residing inside her mirror was experiencing a major freakout. The master was actually smiling because of a mere mortal guy. If the 108 city lords ever caught wind of this news, the entire 9 Abyss city would literally riot, diving under her tiny blanket caused her to start shivering hard. Waking up before 5 a.m. happened to me feeling like an entirely upgraded version of myself. Pure energy was surging through my entire frame, as if someone had secretly buffed my stats while I slept. Slipping out on tiptoes for a quick cleanup, I started warming up the spicy awful soup, crafted the night prior, pouring the whole batch straight into a giant wooden barrel standing nearly a meter tall, and sealing it tightly to trap the heat. Right as my wife woke up, a bowl of the mild version was brought to her with a quick taste. This. Give me your thoughts. She took a tiny sip and gave a nod. It's good, making me low-key flex with pride, because obviously it is an entire barrel of it was brewed just to sell in town. Even giving it the name, yes, pork soup, made her nearly choke on her meal. Her shoulders could be seen twitching slightly as I sprinted outside. Muttering words from her behind me, yes, pork soup, were heard, while she shook her head, grabbing a 2-gin cut of pork belly happened next before heading over to the village chief's place under the cover of early morning darkness. Breakfast was being eaten by him when my arrival happened. Uncle Zhang. A wild boar was hunted down by me the other day. Here's a toast to Zhang for having my back and saving my life back then. That was years ago. He dismissed with a casual wave of his hand. You were practically half dead at the village entrance. What else could I have possibly done? Just watch you die and keep the meat. Just look at how skin and bones you were now, man. A life saved has got to be repaid properly. To be real with you, Uncle Zhang, I actually need a huge favor. Your ox cart is something I desperately need to borrow for the day. Some pork needs to be hauled into town by me, so I can sell it. A pregnant wife is waiting at home now, meaning cash has got to be made. Should this pork not be enough payment for you, even more chunks will be cut for your share. His eyes instantly locked onto the meat. Village chief or not, fresh pork is a total luxury around here. Maybe once a month during festivals is when he gets to buy some. Just take the cart already. Make sure to feed the ox some grass. Whenever you are done, just bring it back. Thanks a million, Uncle Zhang. That ox is going to be treated like royalty by me. As I rolled out with the cart, his family could be heard talking behind my back, starting with his son, who barked. Who in their right mind would marry that dude? Owning nothing but a straw hat, a bowl was swiftly smacked down by his wife, who snapped. At least he hunted a wild boar. What have you ever accomplished besides being born the chief's son? That instantly shut him right up on my journey back home with the cart. Big Dog, alongside his 2 goons, was spotted by me right on the road, bending down swiftly. A rock was picked up by me while glaring at them, asking if they wanted another round. Looking at me as if I were some kind of ghost was what they did. Pure, unfiltered terror was painted all over their eyes. Desperately shoving each other out of the way in a chaotic attempt to escape, blinking in total confusion. I thought to myself, just one beating and they are this shook. That old saying must be spitting straight facts. Tough guys are terrified of crazy guys, while crazy guys are low-key terrified of guys with nothing left to lose, hopping onto the cart while feeling like an absolute boss. Let us roll out, old buddy. Little did I know at that exact moment, those 3 clowns were not actually scared of me at all. The ghosts haunting my house were the real reason for their panic. Back on the night they tried to set my firewood on fire, their torches kept mysteriously flickering out. An ice-cold gust of wind materialized out of thin air, and Big Dog literally got teleported all the way up the mountain before tumbling straight into my pig trap. My property is firmly believed by them to be cursed. meaning they are never stepping anywhere near me ever again back home. The giant soup barrel was approached by me, so I could lift it onto the cart. Bracing myself firmly, it was wrapped in a tight hug with both arms, fully expecting a blood vessel to pop from the strain. Yet it turned out to be merely kind of heavy, not backbreaking at all, just heavy. Wait a minute. Sprinting back inside the house, the Savage Bull Force manual was grabbed by me, and channeled energy exactly the way it described. My blood began to rush through me as I tried it repeatedly. Over and over. Boom. I've officially broken through to level 1 of Savage Bull Force. Blood condensation, realm layer 1, giving me the strength of an ox. The manual clearly states the absolute fastest anyone achieves this is a whole month of hardcore training and massive eating. But I pulled it off in one night while sleeping, fueled only by a diet of leftover pig soup. A massive grin spread across my face instantly. Am I a natural-born warrior or what? Babe. I'm literally at Savage Bull Force level 1, that translates to an ox's strength, about 800 jin. Do you even realize what this means? I was low-key vibrating with excitement. One wild boar weighs roughly 200 jin. Strip out the guts and bones, and you get 150 jin of pure meat at 10 coins per jin. That's 15 tails, plus whatever the awful soup fetches. With another 1 or 2 tails on top, we're gonna be rich. I was so hyped up that I didn't even realize I had just called her babe. For the very first time, she stared back at me with her usual chill expression, and replied, "Yes, I understand you're very powerful now. Get moving to town." Loading her onto the ox cart was my next move, before I started walking right beside it with my hand gripping the ox's rope all along the way. I simply couldn't stop showing off. A huge rock caught my eye right off the side of the road. Who even leaves a massive boulder sitting in the middle of nowhere? Talk about zero civic duty. So I sprinted over there, gave it a bear hug, and chucked it deep into the bushes. Then I spun around to face my wife, flexed my arm hard, and struck a pose, trying desperately to show off some muscles that clearly hadn't grown in yet. She had been holding it in throughout the entire trip, but upon watching me flex my tiny 2 ounces of bicep like I was posing for a fitness magazine, she finally snapped and let out a genuine, beautiful laugh before quickly catching herself and telling me, "All right, put those away. You're as skinny as a skeleton. There is literally nothing to look at here." And I completely froze. That sudden laugh struck me like a bolt of lightning. She was already drop-dead gorgeous with her usual icy expression. But smiling, she existed on a whole different stratosphere. "Are you done staring yet?" she asked me, her face already frozen back into absolute ice. But how could I ever stop? I flashed a grin and started walking backwards just so I could keep looking right at her. "Seriously though, you really ought to smile more often. You look incredible whenever you do." With a heavy sigh, she gave me that classic eye roll, but I'm dead serious. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine pulling a wife this gorgeous. It isn't like I saved the universe in a past life or anything, so how on earth did I get this lucky? "Oh, are you low-key throwing shade about being my man?" she shot back. "Never, babe, I was just spitballing." Suddenly, my foot caught a loose stone and down I went, flat on my back with a thud. She couldn't help but smirk at the sight. Scrambling back up instantly, I punted that rock like a soccer ball into orbit and trotted right back to keep pace with the cart, still trying to walk backward just to keep the convo going. "Just face forward and watch where you're going," she sighed, exasperated. "I'm literally carrying your kid here. Where the heck do you think I'd want her off to?" My heart went into overdrive. Snapping straight into a crisp salute, I barked, "Loud and clear, Commander." Covering her face with her hand in defeat, she watched as I spun back around, grinning ear to ear and mentally tallying up my progress. Wife conquest metrics, 5% completed, total current score sitting at a solid 5%. Back when we first crossed paths, she looked at me like I was some gross bug stuck to her sneaker. Now she's actually cracking up, which is a massive W for me. Time to double down, I figured, busting out into a loud, cheerful tune as I tramped along, guiding the ox by its lead. "You look so gorgeous when you flash that smile, just like springtime blossoms, sweeping away every single ounce of worry." Trudging quietly behind me, my wife listened to every note, her guarded expression gradually melting away. She thought about how I used to wash my scrawny back, and without even realizing it, a soft smile crept onto her face again. Her heartbeat, steady and unchanged for a century, suddenly skipped a tiny beat as dawn broke over the town. Pulling up right beside an inn called 10,000 Guests, I parked the cart securely. I had already cased this exact spot out yesterday, with a steamed bun stall right next door. Serving up spicy awful soup alongside 2 hot buns, you simply couldn't beat that breakfast combo. I had even mapped out a full-blown market analysis inside my head, leveraging corporate knowledge straight from my old life. At 2 yen per bowl, my pricing strategy. Local village farmers couldn't justify the cost, and day laborers making barely 2 yen total were completely out of luck too. So I crossed them right off the list. My target audience was definitely the town's lower middle-class crowd. Folks who weren't starving to death, but rarely got a chance to taste meat. For them, a steaming bowl of rich, meaty soup for just 2 yen was an absolute steal. I rushed to set up a sturdy stool for my wife, knowing pregnant women shouldn't be staying on their feet too long, and promptly popped the wooden lid off the massive barrel. The robust aroma of spicy pork offal soup exploded into the chilly morning air, causing every nearby vendor sitting up to instantly freeze in their tracks. Ambling over, the rival bun vendor took a deep sniff and glared down at his own stale pastries in absolute disgust before abruptly demanding, "Hey kid, what's that crazy concoction you're slinging?" "Pork soup. Fresh wild boar, insanely juicy and tender, going for just 2 yen a bowl. Get it while it's hot, folks." Securing my very first customer was the dude selling buns right next door. Taking one tentative sip, his eyes blew wide open in pure shock and he slammed 4 coins onto the wood shouting, "Wife, get your butt out here right now, you gotta taste this." Sprinting out from the back, his bewildered wife rushed over to see what the commotion was about. Side by side, they sat there aggressively dunking buns straight into my steaming broth while making embarrassing food orgasms that honestly felt illegal on a public sidewalk. "Kid, this is straight up unreal. Only 2 yen, am I seeing you here tomorrow? Every single day, my guy. I'm a seasoned hunter, I trap wild boars all the time," which was a total cap. I had literally stumbled across one single pig by pure luck. But hey, clout is clout and marketing is marketing. Swinging around to face the rest of the vendors frantically setting up shop nearby, he yelled, "What are you guys rubbernecking for? Get over here, this is actual legit meat. 2 yen a pop." They literally stampeded over, having spent their entire miserable existence munching on dry, bland-ass buns for breakfast every morning. For just 1 extra yen, they could score a massive, overflowing bowl of savory meat soup, meaning they were literally throwing their copper coins at my head. "Stop tossing them at me, hand the cash to my wife." I hollered across the stall, pointing directly at her perched quietly on her wooden stool. Looking up, a deer-in-the-headlights expression washed over her face. Out of nowhere, a massive queue of fully grown men started shoving heavy copper coins into her hands while she stood completely frozen, having zero clue what dimensions she had just stepped into. Even so, she reflexively started hoarding the cash with this totally dazed, low-key adorable look in her eyes. Before long, she had to break out an entire cloth sack just to bundle up the mountain of heavy coins piling up. Soon enough, I completely ran out of bowls. "My bad, everybody, I seriously didn't pack enough gear." "Don't sweat it, I brought my own bowl from home," cried one vendor, sprinting back to his station and returning in a flash with his personal crockery. Like a domino effect, everyone else copied him instantly. Right on cue, the heavy morning shopping wave crashed onto the street, bringing in busy housewives and errand-running servant girls from wealthy elite families. Bumping up my hype game, I belted out, "Get your fresh pork soup right here for 2 yen. You can't buy a bad deal, and you certainly can't buy a scam, but you can secure a life-changing bowl of legendary pork soup." Taking a chance on a bowl, a young maid from some loaded aristocratic estate figured she'd take a few bites and leave the rest, convinced she couldn't finish it. Not only did she finish every last drop, she literally licked the ceramic bowl spotless. Suddenly, a brilliant light bulb went off in her head, reminding her of an urgent crisis. Apparently, her spoiled young mistress stuck back at the sprawling manor had aggressively boycotted food for 2 months straight, dropping insane amounts of weight and throwing the entire wealthy household into total panic mode. Every single physician was totally clueless down went for cash coins as she grabbed yet another serving paying 2 just for the bowl itself. Then she bolted back toward the estate with hot broth splashing everywhere. Meanwhile, my cash barrel was running pretty low. There sat my wife nestled, amidst a massive mound of copper coins, tied up in cloth, while taking in the crazy scene around her. The absolute baddest boss in existence was busy collecting tiny 2 cash coins from local vendors, and somehow she wasn't even low-key mad. She looked low-key thriving back at the grand. Estate the kitchen maid barged into the dining hall right during breakfast, clutching my soup tight. The head of the household, some big shot, named Zhang, slammed down his chopsticks hard. "What is the meaning of this behavior? Whose household do you even serve?" She dropped to her knees, lifting the bowl high. "I am Shao Dai from the kitchens. I tasted this soup down at the marketplace. It goes by the name of Yes Pork Soup. And I figured the young miss might totally vibe with it." Old Master Zhang's initial fury evaporated the second he realized it concerned his daughter. He had it immediately checked for poison and cleared before gently handing it over to his ailing girl. Zhang Yuqing had become painfully weak and fragile, having barely touched any food for months. She stared at the ceramic bowl with zero interest, let out a deep sigh, and took one minuscule bite just to appease her folks. Instantly, she froze, her eyes went wide. She put down her spoon, grabbed her chopsticks, and began eating for real. Her parents exchanged stunned looks in disbelief. After 2 solid months of trying everything from famous doctors to rare ingredients and costly remedies with zero results, their beloved daughter was finally devouring a cheap street bowl as if it were the absolute best meal of her life. She polished off the entire portion, pressed a hand to her tummy, and winced slightly. Her father panicked instantly. Was it toxic? Before realizing she was just stuffed. For the first time in ages, he whipped around toward the kneeling servant girl. What was this specific soup? Called again, yes, pork soup, master. He smashed the table. Awesome. You are getting a major promotion starting today. You are my daughter's personal attendant. Now hustle and track down this vendor and drag him here. The little kitchen maid nearly passed out from sheer excitement. Stepping into the role of personal attendant was something she never pictured happening while she was up there. My reality was scraping the bottom, counting pennies alongside my wife with zero clue that a summons was coming my way. To step foot inside a wealthy tycoon's grand estate. 184. Swinging our coin pouch around like a trophy, I marched down the dusty path home, feeling unstoppable. Perched atop the ox cart, my wife just stared, giving me that classic look worn by spouses who have officially given up trying. Babe, I'm an absolute genius, I declared. Since nobody bothers eating pig organs, I can swoop into town, hit up the local butchers, and score all their trash cuts for practically nothing, transforming them into gourmet soup to flip for 10 times the price. Honestly, the profit margins are totally insane. Impressive, she deadpanned, though any reaction counted. If I actually put my mind to making cash, I could make it happen in a heartbeat. I was riding the ultimate high of my life. 184, basically feeling like a billionaire. Dropping the ox cart back off with Annie Zhang, I checked the sky, still early with plenty of sunlight left. Snatching up my trusty axe and rope, I let my wife know I was heading straight into the woods. The main mission today, bag a wild boar. Soup money is cool and all, but real boar meat is where the heavy bread is made. Meanwhile, down at the Zhang Manor in town, little Xiaotai, the servant girl, had sprinted all the way to the market square alongside a whole squad of attendants, only to find my spot totally empty. I had already packed up and cleared out. She looked like she was about to freak out, until the bun stall owner chilled her out. Relax, he told her. He'll be back tomorrow. Up in the mountain canopy, I inspected my traps. One plump gray rabbit was caught snug and dry. Major congrats, little buddy, I whispered. You've just won the grand prize of becoming baby fuel. Tying it up securely and strapping it to my back, I pushed deeper into the dense forest. Warnings had been issued by the village chief to stay out, hinting that wild boars were the least of our worries in those woods. Still, bigger game was what I needed, and the outer trails had already been cleaned out. As the woods closed in dense and heavy, the temperature took a sudden dip. Scarcely any sunlight broke through the canopy, prompting me to kick off what I proudly call my hypothetical danger protocol. To break it down, every conceivable threat gets mapped out in my head so I can prep for it like an absolute boss. It's super low-key professional and deeply tactical. Right before my foot squarely landed in a massive pile of fresh animal crap. That specific disaster scenario was totally missing from my mental checklist. Gagging out loud, I furiously scraped my straw sandals against the dirt, realizing the gross stuff was literally seeping through the weave. Real shoes are getting copped tomorrow without fail, regardless of how ridiculously expensive they might be. Leaning closer to inspect the mess, I caught a whiff of pure pig dung. Scanning the ground revealed massive, deep-set footprints left behind, probably belonging to a solid 300 or 400-pound wild boar. Instantly, my hypothetical danger protocol snapped back online with my axe gripped tightly in hand. Tracking the fresh hoofprints led me straight down toward a running stream. Parting the thick foliage carefully, there it stood, an absolute unit of a wild beast gulping down water. That monster easily scaled past 400 pounds, no cap. My eyes were glued right onto its massive, meaty haunches while my brain rapidly calculated the potential payout. It was officially time to make my move. Out of absolute nowhere, a 4-meter-long tiger exploded from the brush, tackling the colossal boar in one savage leap. With its massive jaws clamped tightly around the neck, the boar thrashed wildly for a few seconds before going completely limp. Just like that, it was a clean, instant kill. Ice-cold sweat immediately soaked clean through my clothes. Had I stepped out of the brush a mere 2 seconds sooner, that poor pig would have been me. And mind you, this exact spot sits a mere 400 meters from the outer tree line. For a solid month, I've been casually strolling around these rugged mountains like it's nothing, totally oblivious to the fact that I've been dancing on the edge of death the whole time. Finishing off its prey, the apex predator abruptly whipped its head around and stared straight through the exact bush I was hiding behind. Every single hair on my body shot straight up while my heart pounded heavily, slamming against my ribs as though it wanted to escape my chest before the rest of me. Oh man, I am so cooked. The massive cat started stalking directly toward me. My palms were slick with sweat, threatening to make me drop my axe. My pulse was going wild like a drum solo as it closed the distance, bringing those terrifying, hunger-filled eyes right into view. I threw my entire weight at the nearest tree, scrambling up the bark like my life depended on it, because it literally 100% did. ROAR, the furious tiger swiped wildly upward, its massive paw slamming dead center into my backside with incredible force. I let out a curse that would totally get me disowned back home and scrambled upward even faster than before, overwhelmed by the terrifying roar. The rabbit strapped to my back straight up, passed out. Lights out in a second with its eyes rolling all the way back into its head. Wild to think that rabbits could actually faint like that, clutching the bark. I was halfway up the trunk and starting to feel low-key secure when suddenly the entire tree began to sway violently beneath me. Glancing downward, I felt my jaw literally drop open in pure shock. Didn't the old legends always teach us that cats taught tigers everything they knew except how to climb trees? That was supposed to be the one absolute rule, the single trick tigers couldn't pull off. Yet this absolute unit was driving its claws right into the wood like it was nothing, scaling the trunk step by step, punching one hole after another, climbing the tree as casually as you please, as if it had studied a completely different instruction manual than I. My vertical runway was running out fast, and then came a heavy thud, echoing from the forest floor as the predator suddenly dropped down. Peeking down cautiously, I saw it standing right back on the dirt, fixing its gaze upward while lazily licking its lips without a care in the world. It strolled over to the carcass of the wild boar, devoured both back legs. Easily 70 or 80 grams of prime, juicy pork, slurped some water, trotted back to my exact tree, and flopped down. This oversized furball was literally trying to spawn camp me, waiting for the rabbit to eventually climb back down. With the rabbit in question being yours truly plus my actual unconscious passenger dangling up there, felt like it dragged on for an entire lifetime. My grip was failing as sweat poured down, and my limbs went completely numb. Desperation finally took over, prompting me to scream out for any nearby help, pleading at the top of my lungs in the deep forest where absolutely nobody was within miles. Not a soul lived in the vicinity. And honestly, no sane person would ever wander out here except yours truly out of nowhere. The beast suddenly launched itself 4 meters straight up into the air as though some terrifying, invisible ghost had startled the living daylights out of it. It bolted across the streaming current and vanished completely into the thick brush. Blinking in disbelief, I waited a moment. Before cautiously sliding down the bark, taking barely 2 steps in the direction of home, I suddenly smacked my own forehead, muttering, "What an absolute idiot." The pig. I sprinted back as fast as I could and secured the remaining boar carcass, missing both rear hams thanks to that freeloading predator. I strapped the knocked-out rabbit firmly across my chest, hoisted 300 jin of heavy pork onto my back, and felt the heat rush to my face, turning bright tomato red. The level 1 savage bull buff might grant me 800 jin of raw lifting power. Though carrying 300 jin still felt like a serious workout, I dashed all the way back home, moving like an absolute madman. The very second I crossed the threshold, I threw myself toward the water storage tank, slurped down half its contents, and crashed hard onto the floor, gasping for air, stepping out with an icy glare. My wife gave me the cold shoulder. "Where the heck were you, rambling in the wild?" Catching my breath while pointing toward the boar, I choked out, "A wild boar." "Yeah, I can clearly see that." Her voice dropping a few degrees, she demanded to know where I had wandered off to. Oh man, she is totally pissed. I ran into a massive tiger and barely escaped with my life. Shooting up to my feet with my hand raised, I survived. I swear I'm totally fine. Deep into that treacherous mountain is somewhere I am never setting foot again, I promise. That frozen look on her face began to slowly thaw out. Letting out a soft huff, she turned around and headed right back inside. Trailing behind her with a goofy grin, I blurted out, "Hey, were you stressing over me just now?" "Not at all," she snapped back instantly. Flashing an even bigger grin, I knew she was low-key stressing big time. Having literally died of fright, the rabbit gave me the perfect excuse to whip up some rabbit soup for lunch. Out of nowhere, my wife actually came out and said the meal was delicious, volunteering a compliment on my cooking. That is a massive W for today. Right after we finished eating, she watched me head over to the sink and dropped, "You need to eat more because you are way too skinny," totally melting my heart. Dashing right back, I grabbed myself another bowl. Sneaking outside post-lunch, I yanked off that grass sandal that had unluckily stepped right next to some tiger poop and pig dung earlier, chucking it as far as my arms could throw. Slipping into a fresh pair immediately, I muttered every single swear word currently in my vocabulary. All right, time to get grinding on these bricks. The sooner I crank them out, the faster I can build our dream house, grabbing my buckets and shovel on my way to the clay spot. Shaping brick molds is a breeze, since I grew up handling this country stuff. Churning out a fresh batch of clay bricks, I carefully loaded them into the kiln and cranked up the heat. Should this test run actually pan out successfully, I'm definitely building a way larger kiln. Same amount of burn time, way more bricks and peak efficiency. Tomorrow's game plan involves hauling this 300 gin boar meat down to town alongside a whole barrel of soup, selling both items simultaneously. Wild boar meat plus savory pork soup will give us a sweet double income stream. Honestly, I'm practically a walking business mogul at this point. Stoking that kiln all the way until midnight, I noticed the bricks weren't fully hardened yet. That usually takes a solid full day of firing, but hey, it totally worked. The kiln is operational, those bricks are legit. They just need a little more bake time. Snatching up a half-finished brick, I sprinted inside looking like I had just struck gold. Babe, look at this, an actual, legitimate brick. Once I mass-produce enough of these bad boys, we are scoring a real house, causing her face to light up with a smile. Nudging her slightly, a gentle whisper escaped. It's getting late, catch some ZZZs. You've got to head into town tomorrow anyway, giving a nod. All my test bricks were dumped right in the yard, a quick splash of cold water cleaned me up, and I totally passed out the microsecond my head hit the mattress. By 4 a.m. the next morning, soup was prepped. The barrel loaded up along with that whole 300 gin boar strapped firmly onto the ox cart. That was when the realization hit me. There was zero room left for my wife. With a calm demeanor, she assured me she could walk, though my chest tightened instantly. Not even a single seat could be offered to her, prompting a quiet vow the very second this pig gets sold. I swear our own ox cart is getting bought, period. Dawn broke just as we reached town. Setting up shop right at my usual spot revealed a crowd already gathered, and waiting word had traveled fast overnight. It seemed a line had formed before the lid was even lifted. Hey now, take it easy, guys. One at a time, trust me. There's more than enough for everybody spotting the massive beast resting on the cart. Someone blurted out. You're a legit hunter for real. That monster is massive, instantly shifting into salesman mode. The pitch started flowing care to grab some wild boar meat while you're dropping by. The dark fur is still clinging to the skin straight out of the mountains. As of yesterday, only 120 cash per gin. Wild game hits completely different compared to regular farm pork, guaranteed. Absolutely. All right, weigh out a gin for me to kick off the day's meat sales, reaching instinctively for my knife and beginning to slice. A sudden panic hit when I realized a scale was missing. Heat flushed straight across my face, noticing the dilemma. A nearby vendor tossed one over, offering to sell me scales. This particular one goes for 10 cash hand over 110 total, and carve me off a gin of that meat too, just like that. This guy sold me a scale while simultaneously buying my meat. Gotta hand it to him, that's top-tier business hustle. About 8 or 9 gin of boar were sold alongside half the barrel of soup, just as a frantic servant girl forced her way through the throng. There you are, stop selling right now. She gasped. An envoy sent from the Zhang Manor. My master is extending an invitation for you to visit our estate. Every last drop of your remaining soup will be bought out. Murmurs of discontent rippled through the crowd, with a guy in the back muttering, aren't the Zhangs supposed to be high-class scholars? Since when do they stoop to clearing out street vendor food? A frown formed on my face. Alienating the everyday customers standing before me was honestly the last thing on my agenda. Look, if soup is what you want to purchase, a bowl can be sold to you, but cleaning out the whole batch is off-limits. These folks showed up and lined up here first, you see. Panic instantly washed over the girl, knowing full well that sullying the esteemed reputation of the Zhang family would land her in catastrophic trouble. A hurried, respectful bow was offered to the gathered crowd by her right after kindly bear with me here for 2 whole months. Our young miss has been down with a strange sickness. Every single physician was totally stumped. Yesterday, I ended up serving her a bowl of this soup, and to everyone's shock, she actually finished it for the very first time. My master is merely requesting this gentleman to drop by and lend a helping hand to the young miss, causing the atmosphere to shift instantly. A few folks nodded in deep understanding upon hearing that this soup could allegedly cure illnesses. However, others immediately surged forward and demanded bowls of their own. Word travels fast, and people will honestly buy into anything nowadays. Every single customer who wanted some got served by me once the crazy crowd finally thinned out. A quick peek inside the barrel revealed roughly a third remaining. That's a wrap for today, folks. We'll be back again tomorrow. Turning toward the fidgety servant girl, I told her to chill out, just let these people finish up and hand back their bowls first. Then I'll tag along with you. Though I'm giving you a heads up that I'm definitely no licensed doctor, just a regular butcher who happens to hunt pigs. Naturally. What am I supposed to call you? Anyway, casting a glance at the massive dead boar strapped to my cart, I flashed a grin. Just refer to me as you the butcher. While waiting around for the bowls to be returned, I hung out with my wife to tally up the morning profits. 164 cash, plus whatever soup we had left over pretty much matching yesterday's numbers. Did you end up polishing off all the malt sugar? I suddenly asked for the first time ever. She blinked in surprise, a slight flush of embarrassment crossed her features. Yeah, she honestly had zero clue how she managed to finish it, either repeatedly telling herself that it wasn't even half as good as the divine fruits she secretly snacked on. Somehow, whenever boredom struck her hand would instinctively reach for yet another piece. I'll pick up some more for you on our way back, I said with a smile. She watched me hustle around collecting empty bowls, scrubbing them clean, packing up gear, constantly moving and keeping busy, always keeping an upbeat vibe while something brand new surfaced across her face. A gentle, serene warmth that felt like a totally foreign sensation she had never encountered throughout 1,000 years of spiritual cultivation, giving off low-key vibes of what a real home should feel like. Seriously, this place is massive. Staring at the Zhang estate, my jaw dropped completely open in sheer awe. Massive towering gates, imposing stone lions, the whole 9 yards. Leaning over toward my wife, I whispered, "Babe, one of these days when we're rolling in cash, we're totally buying a pad just like this one." Before I could even wrap up my grand declaration, a tall, slender gentleman dressed in luxurious silk robes stepped outside. A slight flicker of annoyance crossed his brow the moment he scanned my ragged hemp gear and those beat-up grass sandals I was sporting. Skipping the pleasantries, he demanded, "Did you really bring that pork soup?" I just gave a sharp nod, diving straight into the hustle and popped the barrel open, letting the savory aroma do all the heavy lifting. He signaled for his daughter to join us, and we engaged in some small talk. But the second I mentioned I hailed from a tiny village in the mountains, you could practically see his respect plummet to zero. Coming from a high-end mighty scholar family, they'd been flaunting their literary creds for generations. To him, I was nothing more than a total caveman hawking pig guts. He didn't voice it, but his whole vibe was screaming it loud and clear. It really bugged me, honestly. Still, I kept up the grin. After all, I was on his turf, and I desperately needed his cash. Just then, his daughter walked in, accompanied by a servant who was dutifully shielding her with a parasol. One glance was all it took for me to peg her type immediately. Totally spoiled rich girl who's never lifted a finger in her life. Definitely not my vibe, so I turned back to Mr. Jiang. "How much for the recipe?" I asked him, cutting through the awkwardness. That's when my gears started turning. A single soup recipe might net me 10 taels tops, which isn't gonna cut it. I needed a much bigger payout. "Time to upsell this gig. I figured that recipe is basic," I told him, keeping it chill. "Your daughter doesn't actually have a legit eating disorder. She's just over all this fancy, overpriced food. I've got a few other ideas that make that soup look like total trash. Let me whip up a couple of dishes. If she refuses to eat them, the soup recipe is on the house." His jaw tightened at my audacity. He clearly viewed me as some delusional hillbilly who needed to learn his place. "Fine," he retorted coldly. "Show me what you've actually got." They escorted me to the kitchen, and I swear my jaw practically hit the floor. The kitchen was massive, bigger than my entire property, even counting my beat-up straw hut and yard. With the sheer variety of ingredients and seasonings they had stocked, it was like I'd died and gone to heaven. I quickly scouted the pantry, plotted my strategy, and got to work. In under 20 minutes, I served up 3 dishes: spicy vinegar potato shreds, stir-fried cabbage with a vinegar kick, and a pickled vegetable fish soup. The first 2 were quick, maybe 10 minutes tops. Child's play, really. The aroma exploded in the room like a bomb, leaving Mr. Jiang and his wife standing there, desperately trying to maintain their dignity, drooling like crazy over the savory aroma. Their daughter was summoned over, immediately shuffling forward with total hesitation. Her eyes popped right open after taking just a single bite of the cabbage. She devoured her plate like someone who hadn't touched food for ages, which was pretty much the absolute truth. Those shredded potatoes totally blew her mind. Soup was the only way she had ever tasted potatoes before. Nobody around here even dreams of shredding them and stir-frying with vinegar. She was already completely stuffed by the time the pickled fish arrived. Grabbing her dad's sleeve, she blurted out, "Daddy, is he our new chef? This food is straight up legendary." Stepping up to the table, Mr. Zhang snatched a clean pair of chopsticks, sampling every single dish. He almost dropped his jaw in disbelief, whirling around to stare at me like I was casting dark magic. "Name your price for all 4 recipes." Casting a sidelong glance at my wife, I waited for some kind of cue. She kept a totally poker face, not even a single eyebrow twitched. "Alrighty." Then, playing it super chill, I replied, "These represent my absolute finest techniques. To be honest, I have no clue what they're actually worth. Just throw out a number." Flashing 2 fingers in a classic figure-8 gesture, he made his move. My pulse went completely crazy. 80 taels, shaking his head. He corrected, 800 taels for the whole set of 4 recipes, 800 taels total. Every fiber of my being was screaming, while I low-key wanted to do a backflip or break down crying or grab my wife and twirl her around the room. Yet I had weathered plenty of major storms. That was the pep talk I gave myself as my left eyelid kept twitching, maintaining my cool. Facade mostly 800. It is by the way. There is a massive 200 gin wild boar sitting in my cart, outside. Freshly hunted, you guys want it, let's just round the whole thing up to 900. For everything, he added with a casual wave of his hand, acting like he was just tossing a tiny tip to a waiter. 900 taels. Pulling out a thick wad of banknotes, he counted off precisely 9, holding those fancy bills and staring at the intricate print. I was forced to ask the most awkward question in my entire existence. Where exactly can I swap these out for genuine silver? Shuang Wu Bank handles those exchanges, Mr. Zhang kindly clarified, even though every single note takes a one-tael processing fee hit. Stepping out of the Jiang mansion, I kept locking my eyes on those 9 banknotes, treating them like sacred ancient scriptures. Babe, 900 taels, just another 2,100, is all we need to lock down a proper city house. Honestly, I totally should have whipped up a few more dishes. Back-to-back compliments in under 2 days. Loki impressive, she noted once more. Total main character energy right now, I thought, immediately grabbing her hand. The crisp banknotes were slapped straight into her open palm. You're officially the CFO from here on out, I boldly declared. Let's go splurge on a fresh freaking ox cart and some sweet malt sugar. Striding forward, I marched right into the dusty cattle market with absolute riz, looking like a guy who miraculously flipped 5 pitiful taels into 900 in 3 days. When I last set foot here, that sketchy dealer had stared me down like some pathetic stray dog sniffing around his turf. Not today, you again? The dealer visibly cringed, his face twisting into a deep frown upon seeing me. Yeah, big surprise, it's me again, and I'm here to drop some cash. Pulling a heavy 100-tael banknote out from my shirt pocket, I casually flicked it right against his nose. Wipe the dust off your eyes and read that properly. That previous visit was merely a secret audit of your terrible customer service. Spoiler alert, you totally flunked it, but the attitude adjustment was instantaneous. His stiff spine bent completely double, his ugly frown morphing into a greasy grin, and suddenly I wasn't just some broke kid anymore. Right this way, esteemed sir, he practically sang. These right here are our standard 20-tael cows, though over in this section we feature the premium 40-tael. Wait, nope. This special one is 20 taels plus an extra cart for 2. Cut the crap, you told me those carts were only 2 taels last time, so don't even try playing me. But my good sir, a budget cow like this doesn't match your VIP status at all. I said I want this exact one, so hook it up right now while I watch. Selecting a sturdy young female cow, my genius brain immediately started calculating the future logistics. If I tracked down a bull later on, I could breed them for free baby calves. Pure passive income grinding, because my entrepreneur mindset never sleeps. 30 minutes later, I rolled out of there with a gleaming brand new ox cart, complete with a canopy on top for shade. My wife would finally ride around in absolute luxury from now on. No more sweating through a grueling 2-hour trek under the scorching September sun. We secured the sweet malt sugar and locked down 3 fresh pairs of genuine cloth shoes for each of us. Say goodbye to rough grass sandals forever, and good riddance to stepping blindly in random animal droppings and feeling that disgusting squish squeeze right through the weave. Those miserable days are officially history. Heading back down the dusty road, I took the reins of the village chief's battered old cart while my wife relaxed comfortably inside our brand new one. Cruising side by side, 2 carts slowly cut a path through the rolling countryside. Plucking a massive broad leaf, I slapped it right onto my head as a makeshift sun hat. As the gentle, rhythmic rocking of the moving cart quickly lulled me to sleep, Yichuan. Snapping back, I cleared away non-existent drool from my chin, feeling totally shook. Hell, what? No way, I wasn't even dozing off. For real though, living out here in this mountain village is low-key my vibe, I protested. City life is way too chaotic and loud, I muttered, blinking in total disbelief. Did my wife actually start a conversation with me totally unprovoked? Without me even prompting her first? That literally never happens ever. Bet let's just upgrade to a bigger crib right where we're standing now. Piece of cake, even with 900 taels burning a hole in my pocket. Buying factory bricks wasn't even on my radar since I can totally craft my own. All that cash is meant for bigger power moves anyway, like brewing signature wine, launching a spot, or stacking investments. Money breeds money, after all. I can't just blow it all and end up back at square one with 0. I've got a wife to look after and a literal mini-me dropping next year. I've totally made up my mind, I yelled out of nowhere, making my wife flinch. Every last cent of this stash is going straight into business. And once the kid is old enough, we're bypassing those basic public academies entirely. Instead, we're hiring a VIP private tutor to come straight to our doorstep. She shot me a major side-eye, clearly annoyed while she was deep in thought about picking up some immortal hobby to pass the next 100 years, before drifting back into her own mystical world as we neared the village. Suddenly, something caught my eye hidden inside a pile of withered roadside hay. Pulling the cart to a halt, I stepped closer to investigate. My wife tagged along out of pure curiosity. Lying there was an entire litter of newborn puppies, tiny little squeakers barely bigger than the palm of my hand, covered in yellowish-brown fur like some stray farm dog had littered and ditched them out here in the cold. Checking them one by one, they were all completely lifeless, making my stomach drop. Right then, one of them gave a tiny twitch. "Hold up, this one's breathing." I scooped it up super gently, its eyes still tightly shut and sealed. Holding this warm, fragile little heartbeat in my hands felt surreal. Having grown up out in the boondocks, I used to have a loyal pup named Ahung back when I was a kid. When he finally passed of old age, my 12-year-old self cried for days straight. Giving my wife a pleading look, I asked softly, "Babe, can we please keep him? Look how ridiculously tiny he is." She gazed down at the puppy, and a subtle shift crossed her expression before she gave a silent nod. A huge grin spread across my face, and I gently stroked its teeny head with just the tip of my finger. "You're rocking that yellow coat, so I'm naming you Da Hwang, so you better grow up big and strong for me, okay?" The little fellow wobbled his head in response, and my heart officially turned into pure mush. Rolling back into the village leading 2 heavily loaded ox carts, you would have thought a literal king was making his grand entrance. Half the village froze dead in their tracks, mouths wide open. Out of every single household scattered across this tiny place, barely 3 or 4 even owned an ox cart. And bam, here rolls Ichun, that guy everyone totally ghosted from memory, pulling right up with 2. "Is that genuinely your cart?" Some random local stammered out, "Yep, offloaded some wild boar meat down in town, figured snagging one for convenience made sense." I dropped it so casually, like buying ox carts was just another basic Tuesday for me. Insane, that kid actually turned his whole life around naturally. For every single person tossing out a compliment, there were like 5 others straight up whispering behind my back, probably just pure dumb luck. Right, if he's supposedly so loaded. Why is he still living in that dump hut? His wife's probably hideously ugly too. Did you catch her rocking that heavy hooded robe in this suffocating heat? Good thing my spot is a solid 100 meters outside the village limits, meaning I didn't hear a single word of it. And honestly, even if I had caught wind of it, who even cares? Beefing with petty gossipers would just drag me straight down to their level. Has running your mouth ever actually stuffed anyone's pockets with cash? Nope. So shut it and let me hustle back home. I threw together a cozy little bed of dried grass right on the floor for our newest puppy addition. The air was practically melting with heat, so there was zero chance of him freezing tonight. Next up, I whipped together some pork noodles freshly hand-pulled, tossed with cabbage in a deeply savory broth, setting aside a portion of lukewarm soup. I mashed the noodles down until they were super soft and tenderly spoon-fed it to little Da Hong. This tiny pup had probably never even tasted actual mother's milk, yet here he was, aggressively slurping down noodle soup like a boss. Look at that, skipped the proper nursing phase entirely, and already crushing solid food like a champ. That right there is a true country dog for you, built absolute rock-solid. Dinner finished, I instinctively reached to clear the dishes before my wife suddenly stood up. "I'll take care of washing those, you go handle your own stuff." I froze in place, locked eyes with her, then grabbed her arm, guided her straight back toward the edge of the bed, and gently pressed her down by the shoulders into a seat. "Hard pass on that. You are carrying our baby, so zero housework allowed. That department is strictly my duty. Your only assignment is to kick back, but I and no buts. Every single chore is my problem now. You are officially banned from lifting a finger." Stepping outside with a massive grin plastered across my face, I hummed a cheerful little tune while scrubbing down the bowls. My wife actually volunteered to wash dishes. She's low-key engaging. She's actively participating. Wife conquest progress sitting at a solid 5%, bringing the current overall total to 10% when I casually peeked back inside. The Hwang pup was completely curled up and knocked out right in the palm of my wife's hand. Absolute perfection. Everything is coming together flawlessly. An entire afternoon was spent by me constructing a legit brick kiln. Spanning 4 meters long, 2 meters wide, and 2 meters tall, this beast was massive. Roughly 1,000 bricks per single batch could be fired by this absolute unit. A compact 2-story pad is what my house blueprint actually calls for. Somewhere around 60 to 70,000 bricks will be needed. We've got a long grind ahead, but every single brick seriously matters. Out to the yard, the cart was rolled by me that evening to whip up some brick molds. Right behind me tagged along my wife with the Hwang. After grinding away in the thick mud for roughly an hour, I finally paused. Dusting off my hands, a proud gaze was cast over my fresh stack of output. Not too shabby, over 1,000 molds cranked out in just 60 minutes flat. Turns out I'm way more low-key efficient than I ever gave myself credit for. What completely flew under my radar, however, was my wife. Without warning, her fingers started wiggling stealthily behind my back, causing chunks of clay to magically mold themselves into flawless brick shapes out of thin air and slide right into my pile. So yeah, maybe my crazy productivity wasn't entirely legit after all. 2 heavy cartloads later, everything was fully stacked and completely prepped for firing tomorrow. Totally wiped out, a quick shower was taken by me before crashing hard onto the mattress and instantly passing out. Skipping the usual trip into town was the move for me the next morning. Not enough pork was left over to make selling worthwhile, plus way higher priority tasks were waiting for me. Bricks. At least a full day of continuous firing is required for bricks to achieve proper hardness. At dawn, I trekked up the mountain and hauled back 200 gin of firewood on my back, with a hefty, plump rabbit dangling securely from my belt. A hearty pot of rabbit soup served as breakfast. Some well-deserved mashed meat and rich broth were given to the huan. Packing the kiln full, I finally got the fire roaring. Managing temperature control is notoriously tricky, forcing me to hang tight nearby all day just to keep things stable. Meanwhile, down along the highway stretching from town toward our village, a completely unexpected situation was currently brewing without my knowledge. A sketchy crew of thugs bumped along in an ox cart, charging directly on a collision course for me. Tiger bro, are you seriously positive this dude is hiding out in Mountain Village? My brother works down at the cattle market, and he spilled that some random village noob rolled in yesterday, flashed a 100-tail banknote, and dropped 22 tails just for a cart. That kid is definitely low-key sitting on at least 80 more for sure. We're gonna swipe all that silver, hijack the cart, and beat him up so bad he won't be walking right for years. Easy money, boys. The ringleader grinned wickedly, pure greed shining in his eyes while staring hungrily at the village looming ahead in the distance. And there I was, just chilling right by my kiln, completely oblivious as I watched the bricks bake. I was sitting right by my kiln, keeping the fire fed with firewood. Just minding my own business when completely out of nowhere, a random couple strolled up flashing the most fake grins I've ever witnessed, flashing a bright. "Little you, what are you working on?" That guy's gaze wasn't locked on me, though it was glued right to my cow grazing nearby. "Not much, and who are you guys?" "I'm Lee Dotto, just call me Uncle Lee, and this right here is my wife Jo Tsui Hua, though you can call her Annie Jo. Oh, by the way, would you mind if I borrowed your ox cart? I just need to pop into town real quick." Just like that. 2 seconds in and I'm suddenly his brand new nephew, while my ox cart has apparently become community property. "Sorry, I need it today myself." That was the exact moment Auntie Jo dropped the act, as her voice instantly turned sharp and nasty. "You better think twice about this, little ye, considering our family is one of the wealthiest in this whole village. It's literally just a cart, so don't be so petty over something so minor." My smile vanished as I grabbed my heavy axe, splitting a thick log right down the middle in front of them. They instinctively stumbled back, and casting a sideways glance, I told them, "If your family is so loaded, go buy your own damn cart. Or did you honestly expect me to bow down and hand you 2 gin of pork as a free bonus?" I was just being totally sarcastic, yet this woman's eyes literally lit up with pure greed. "Well, if you're offering up pork, I wouldn't want to be a bother, so I'll just go slice it up myself." She aggressively grabbed her husband's arm and began marching straight toward my yard, heading right for my meat hanging on the line. Her sheer audacity completely fried my brain for a second, making me hurl my axe through the air so it landed with a loud thud right in their path. "We aren't family, and we sure as hell aren't friends, and you never once offered help when I was starving. Now that I've got something, you're suddenly my loving aunt and uncle. Get lost. How dare you talk to your aunt like that? I'm not even asking for much, just a little pork. Fine, husband. Run back home and grab 2 steamed buns. See, we're trading. 2 plain buns for 2 gin of meat. Totally fair and square." That guy actually started sprinting home to fetch some buns, while trading 2 buns for 2 gin of wild boar is straight-up robbery. I'd had enough of this nonsense, so get lost, no cart, no pork. And if you want meat, go hunt it down yourself. Stop embarrassing yourselves right outside my house. Well, I'm not leaving here until you hand over my 2 gin of pork, her pork. 2 minutes ago it was totally mine. But now it's magically hers reaching deep into the brick kiln. I yanked out a blazing branch crackling with wild sparks, and leveled it straight at her face. "You said you ain't going anywhere, so better keep that in mind when this touches you." Planting her hands firmly on her hips, she stood there dead sure I wouldn't have the guts. Apparently every single family in this entire village walks around terrified of her. Smack! The fiery stick caught her sleeve square on, sending sparks flying as a hole instantly scorched through her fabric. "You actually hit me." Pure shock washed over her, since literally no one had ever dared to call her bluff before. "And I'll do it again, no cap." swinging the burning branch right at her pointing finger, cause seriously, I hate being pointed at. I watched her yank her hand back and sprint frantically toward the village, screaming at the top of her lungs. Why Chun is out here murdering people? Village chief, you gotta do something, and besides, he still owes me 2 gin of pork. There's seriously zero justice left in this world, I muttered, spitting on the dirt as her figure vanished into the distance. Sure, I've run into plenty of shameless folks in my time, but I've honestly never witnessed shamelessness on that level. Stepping outside into the bright daylight, my wife appeared, so I brushed it off with a casual wave. Just some absolute trash taking itself out. Head back inside, the sun's getting way too brutal. But she didn't budge an inch. Instead, she lingered, peering at the massive kiln with intense curiosity. Just how long does this whole process take? I gotta keep the temperature locked in steady all the way until tomorrow morning. That long? Yeah, but one single batch knocks out 1,000 bricks at a time. I figure our new house is going to need around 60 to 70,000 total. If I build a second kiln and run both of them simultaneously, I can totally wrap this up in under 2 months. With a quiet nod, she turned around and headed back indoors. Little did I know, she had actually scanned my entire kiln setup using her hidden powers, figuring out the absolute mechanics of brick firing in roughly 3 seconds flat, secretly weaving a subtle wisp of divine energy to stabilize the heat. She made sure the fire burned to absolute perfection without me having to stress or fuss over it whatsoever, while effortlessly teleporting an extra 200 or 300 brick molds straight out of thin air right into the kiln. Though not too many, obviously, since she didn't want me getting overly suspicious about my abnormally high productivity. Meanwhile, her tiny mirror spirit was observing the whole scene unfold from within the shimmering enchanted glass, its face scrunched up in deep inner conflict before finally whispering softly to itself. Master is Loki turning more and more human every single day. Back in the village, Andy Joe was totally losing her mind over this that outsider kid, Ladatu. Was straight up swiping her people's carts and meat left and right. Meanwhile, creeping down the dusty road from town, an even bigger headache was heading my way. A sketchy crew of thugs riding an ox cart commanded by some dude called Tiger Bro had just locked eyes on my humble straw shack in the distance. They could easily spot my brand new ox cart parked outside. Tiger Bro flashed a wicked blade, pulling it right out, licking his lips while giving his boys a creepy grin. It was time to hunt. But I was just chilling by my makeshift kiln, casually feeding dry sticks into the flickering fire, deeply absorbed in sketching out my dream house blueprints. Yes, there I sat right next to my blazing kiln, scratching detailed house plans into the dirt with a wooden stick, muttering to myself like an absolute madman living his best life 2-story dream house right here. Baby, a massive wooden fence encircling the whole compound built from real logs. None of these flimsy twigs I'm stuck with now, plus a chill bamboo garden out back. Vegetable patches over on that side for the September planting season. We're talking celery, crisp spinach, and fresh lettuce, garlic. Spicy chili peppers, green onions, and heavy heads of cabbage, sweet potatoes will take over the main farmland zone because you simply cannot waste valuable yard space. Sweet potato noodles easily fetch 20 yen per gin on the market if I scale this operation up. I could launch a full-blown noodle empire. Hire local villagers to toil in the fields and pay them honest wages while I just kick back and rake in the cash. Honestly, putting me basically just one step away from drafting a corporate organizational chart right there in the mud when suddenly a stray rock smashed straight into my back, making me leap right up. 6 menacing, rough-looking thugs were marching aggressively toward me, each one brandishing a sharp knife. And I instantly figured Joe Tsuehua sent them. So hiring cheap hoodlums is that shameless woman's ultimate master plan classic move. Sending thugs, I swear I have never crossed paths with anyone quite this repulsive in my entire life with a swift motion. I yanked my heavy carrying pole off the ground and audibly cracked my stiff neck. You guys want to try bullying me? Let's see if you actually have what it takes. Their fearless leader, some obnoxious punk going by Tiger Bro, waved his blade around and cackled, "Take him down, boys," and they lunged forward as a pack talk about a massive mistake. Considering I am a certified level 1 warrior now, endowed with the raw strength of an ox and a staggering 800 jin of force, the very first goon caught my wooden pole square across his face and catapulted a good 3 meters backward like a helpless, boneless rag doll. These guys were nothing more than ordinary street thugs with zero cultivation or martial training. When pitted against an actual awakened warrior, even an absolute beginner, those clowns had literally zero chance. With a heavy thud, I brought my pole down right on Tiger Bro's head, leaving him staggering backward and totally seeing stars. Barely 30 seconds passed before 6 armed thugs with a were all sprawled across the dirt. Groaning in pain, go back and deliver this message to that woman. Ichun isn't someone you can just push around. Try pulling that stunt again, And I'll shatter more than just your ego. My uncle is a level 3 warrior, Tiger Bro screeched while sprinting away. You're totally cooked. My eyes instantly lit up as I noticed them scrambling toward their ox cart in a desperate attempt to make a run for it. Since these clowns literally rolled up to jump and rob me, it's only fair I snatched their ride as payback. Chasing them down at full speed, I leaped straight onto the cart and batted every single one of them off with my trusty pole. They tumbled face first into the dirt and kept sprinting. Perched on the cart like an absolute boss, I thought. This whip is mine now if you want it back. Come and catch these hands. Meanwhile, Lee Dadu and Jo Tsuwa had managed to rally 5 or 6 angry villagers wielding hoes, ready to teach me a serious lesson, though they showed up just in time to watch me completely style on 6 armed gangsters all by myself. One look at that beatdown sent the villagers backpedaling in fear. Uncle Lee, maybe we should just leave this guy alone. Those dudes had actual knives, and he completely folded them all. Of Lee Dada's fierce courage instantly vanished. Let's bounce. He lives right here anyway. We'll get him later. Jutsu. I wanted to argue back, but she was too busy watching me turn half a dozen grown men into human floor mats. They all shuffled back toward the village in awkward silence, steering my brand new ride back home. I watched the villagers retreating into the distance, glanced at the thugs fleeing toward town, and suddenly connected the dots. Hold on, those thugs weren't even sent by Jutsu. I checked the cart, and it literally had the cattle market's official brand stamped on it. That shady dealer must have sent them after catching sight of my 100-tail bank note yesterday. Whatever. If he wants to send more waves, I'll just keep collecting free ox carts. Talk about free delivery. I parked the new cart right in the yard and hopped down with a huge grin. Babe, I totally scored an ox cart. And the bull is a total stud too, so we don't even have to stress about finding a breeder anymore. Our cows can finally start making babies leaning against the door frame. She gave me her classic trademark look of deeply affectionate exasperation before walking back inside. Right after lunch, I was just hanging out and playing with Dahung when the little guy's eyelids started twitching like crazy, and right then, those eyelids fluttered open. Staring straight up into my face were these tiny, adorable round eyes. Little baby Dahung finally unsealed his eyes. Check this out, I blurted, sprinting over to lift him right in front of my wife. Our faces were immediately locked in the tiny pup's gaze. He then unfurled his little pink tongue, giving my palm a soft lick. My heart straight up exploded, and a genuine smile actually broke across my wife's face. Moving her hand over, she began gently stroking his tiny head. Honestly, weaponized cuteness like this was completely impossible for even her to resist. That entire afternoon turned into a full-on juggling act with 3 tasks. Task 1, keeping the bricks firing inside kiln number 1. Task 2, assembling kiln number 2, while task 3 was literally just avoiding heat stroke. To survive the brutal sun, a makeshift grass hat was woven by me. Though I was monitoring the temp every 30 minutes, the weirdest thing was happening. Even during moments I completely spaced out, the heat held totally solid. Pure luck, I guess, because by the time twilight hit, Kiln 2 stood fully built. All that remained was letting it cure overnight. Come tomorrow, this beast would be primed to double our daily output. Right around midnight, my wife appeared at the doorway. "Are you seriously pulling an all-nighter?" she asked, while I rubbed my weary eyes. "Yeah, hourly wood refills are a must, but I'll catch quick power naps in between. Don't stress over me, go get some sleep." Her lips parted as if a word was about to slip out. Instead, she pressed them shut and stepped back inside. My eyes locked onto the flicking embers. Slapping my own face repeatedly was the only way to lock in and stay awake. Grand blueprints were rapidly spinning through my head. House layouts, brick manufacturing, lush veggie plots, noodle operations. It felt like shiny new ox carts were just dropping right out of the sky. Life was leveling up day by day, but I ended up crashing out hard. And didn't wake up until nearly midday, rocking massive dark circles, courtesy of that brutal all-night shift tending the kiln. The alarm clock that finally snapped me awake was Da Hwang giving my face a wet slobber lick. Whoa, Da Hwang, what even happened to you? You literally doubled in size since yesterday." Lifting him up in total disbelief, I just stared. This little pup was now 2 full handspans long. Mind you, he barely spanned a single palm when I first rescued him. Parting his little jaws, he let out a tiny squeak. Nah, man, not like that. Go like this, ow, ow." He cocked his head, gazed up with those tiny glossy eyes, and let it rip. "Yeah, AWO, AWO. Attaboy." Pride was practically bursting out of me, stepping out from the kitchen with a bowl in hand, my wife offered. "A totally deadpan reality check. He's a dog, not a wolf. Why are you even training him to howl? Because it's hilarious, don't you think it's—" The words caught in my throat, as the reality of what just occurred hit me. "Hold up, did you seriously cook?" Taking the bowl, my eyebrows furrowed. "Zero chores, remember, you're literally pregnant." Muttering under her breath, she stormed off toward the kitchen, trailing right behind her. My gaze immediately locked onto the simmering pot of meat soup. Something felt totally off as that iron cookware looked weirdly brand new and impossibly glossy. Giving off Major Loki vibes like someone just unboxed it wasn't that exact pot super old and beat up. She froze dead in her tracks for half a second, grabbed her bowl in a hurry, and bolted out while snapping, "Eat up." Little did I know, this was literally her first time ever cooking a meal throughout thousands of years of existing. She had only casually watched me do it a few times, and figured how hard could it possibly be after lighting the fire and setting the pot down. Everything seemed chill so far. Then she suddenly decided the flames were way too weak, flicked her wrist effortlessly, and accidentally summoned a divine blaze that completely punched a hole straight through the iron pot using pure spiritual energy. She caught the falling meat and soup right before disaster struck, and then instantly recreated the entire pot from scratch using raw power, meaning the 9 abyss. Empress's grand debut at cooking ended with a vaporized pot, while for her second attempt she decided to play it super safe with normal firewood, just like an ordinary civilian, as I slurped the soup and grinned, murmuring, "Dang, such natural flavor. This is seriously good," before she took a sip and immediately scowled, "This tastes foul, it has literally zero flavor." "Oh wait, you forgot the C. Seasoning, no big deal though. What seasoning? I didn't even catch you dropping any seasoning before I blinked. Have you seriously never cooked in your life?" She put on a mildly defensive expression. I just never felt like cooking before, causing me to let it slide while dropping some meat into the H-Wang's little bowl. Before a weird detail caught my eye, I was 100% sure I left the H-Wang chilling on the bed, which sits pretty high up from the floor. How on earth did he get down here? Sitting in total silence, she quietly finished her tasteless soup once lunch wrapped up. I hauled out my very first batch of authentic bricks, straight from the kiln, slamming 2 together without a single crack, forming the overall durability. Was top-tier green bricks were intentionally chosen over red ones this time. Even though both match in strength, green bricks withstand harsh weather moisture, and weathering way better, bearing in mind I am building right in a village, completely exposed to the harsh elements. Green bricks were clearly the ultimate choice. Piling them neatly in the yard, I counted the total and grinned proudly. Just another couple of months doing this, and I would have plenty for a 2-story house, before I completely lost track of time. An unexpected surplus of a few hundred bricks had somehow ended up in my pile. A smooth workflow took over my routine across the next 48 hours, making molds, firing them, and just rinsing and repeating. Even a specific kind of timber was found by me burning steadily for 4 to 5 hours, allowing actual sleep to happen through the dark hours, instead of jolting awake every single hour. Absolute game changer. Chilling by the kiln was how I spent one evening, messing around with the H-Wang, who had already grown to 4 palms in size, expanding at a ridiculously insane pace. A bone was dangled right above him by my hand, triggering excited jumps and yaps as he tried grabbing it, while my wife observed us softly smiling from her spot at the doorway. She radiated a vibe of genuine, authentic contentment. Boredom and annoyance were totally absent, far from merely tolerating things. She was low-key loving it. Screams suddenly shattered the peace as a woman in lavish garments came sprinting straight toward our homestead from the village entrance, her long hair streaming wildly behind her, pursued fiercely by 4 or 5 armed guys wielding huge swords. "Help! Somebody help! They're trying to murder me!" Spotting me immediately, relief flooded her eyes with brightness. Then my wife, standing right beside me, caught her attention, causing her face to freeze completely while her brows twitched upward. That subtle shift in her expression carried way more than standard shock. Pure confusion was written all over it, as if a very specific scenario had been anticipated, and this definitely wasn't it. Somehow expecting me to be completely single was the vibe. Why on earth would a random stranger running for her dear life care about my relationship status? "Save me!" The girl lunged forward aggressively, as though she intended to throw herself right into my embrace. That same pig bone used for playing with the H-Wang was thrust outward, successfully blocking her at arm's length. Glancing up at me first, then at her, the H-Wang let out a tiny woof. "Good boy, miss. Proper boundaries must be kept between men and women. A married guy is what I am." No hugging allowed. Shoving her aside using the pig bone, I pivoted sharply to confront her pursuers. "What is going on here? 5 grown dudes chasing down a lone woman. Are you trying to rob or execute her? Mind your own damn business and get out of the way." The masked leader barked back, revealing only piercing cold eyes while my arms were crossed tightly. These past few days of eating good meals, all that brutal grinding had completely leveled up my physique. Gone was my old skeleton frame, since I was now rocking some seriously legit muscles, standing tall at a solid 6 feet, wrapped in rough hemp, and gripping a heavy pig leg bone. I totally gave off total barbarian warlord vibes. I let my blood energy surge right through me, causing every single vein in my body to pop out and throb hard, hitting peak level 1 blood condensation, looking crazy intimidating. as hell made the gang leader's eyes go wide. Noticing my boiling blood and those snake-like veins, "You're a warrior," he choked out before instantly signaling a full retreat. "You can't protect her forever," he hissed at the terrified girl. And in a flash, they all vanished into the shadows of the forest. As I spun around, the crazy girl immediately made another move, trying to lunge and throw herself right at me. I sidestepped smoothly like a pro matador, leaving her to faceplant hard straight into thin air. Stepping over casually, toward my wife I pointed, and told her, "Ma'am, that brick house right there happens to be the village chief's place. Go hit him up for some help." She started wailing loudly, leaning closer to my actual wife. I whispered under my breath, "Babe, I honestly think this chick's got a screw loose upstairs. Let's casually back away right now." Her loud crying stopped dead in its tracks, staring at me with total shock. She wiped her tears away, stepped up close, bowed gracefully, and spoke up. "My name is Joe Mushua, the daughter of Master Joe from town. You saved my life just now, so I want to repay you by taking you as my husband." My wife's temperature instantly plummeted to absolute zero. I waved both hands frantically and shouted, "Absolutely not happening. Saving you is nothing. And I'm already taken. She's literally the only wife I'll ever want." "So drop it." My wife's icy death glare thawed out quite a bit. She was low-key loving it, biting her lip. Joe Mushua pulled off the most pitiful pout. "Ever do you genuinely find me that repulsive?" "This has zero to do with being repulsive. Your whole moral compass is completely fried. Let me break it down for you. I save your life, so you wanna marry me. Fine, then what happens next week when another random dude saves you? Are you gonna marry him too? And then a third guy rescues you, making him husband number 3 at this rate of 1 rescue a year. By the time you hit 60, you're gonna have clocked like 40 different husbands." "Ma'am, please," I urged as I pulled my wife back another step. "Miss, have some basic self-respect at this point." My wife burst out laughing with a look dangerously close to affection. She shot a quick glance at me just like that. Joe Mushua stood there looking low-key blue-screened. Evidently, a completely different version of me had been expected by her, someone low-key, antisocial, and a total pushover. Where on earth had that guy vanished to? And why was a random chick standing here defying all her script notes in whatever twisted plot she had cooked up? Something about this girl felt majorly sus. A flash of icy coldness crossed her face while staring at my wife before instantly melting back into a soft, helpless expression. Nightfall is dropping fast, and those sketchy guys might still be lurking out there. Would it be cool if I crashed here for just one night? Totally fine. The village chief's house sits right over there. Massive place. Endless space, so go on your way. But those folks are total strangers to me. What if they're harboring bad vibes? And how can you be certain I'm not bringing bad vibes either? Just head to the village chief, because my place is completely packed. Maybe I could just share the bed with your wife." My wife's expression instantly turned glacial. "Hard pass, since my wife is currently expecting. Rest deprivation ruins the baby, so you are definitely not staying under this roof." And that is final. Before she pivoted strategies, completely sliding up next to my wife with teary eyes. "Big sister, you're gorgeous beyond words. You've gotta have a heart of gold. Just let me share your mattress. I'll take up virtually zero space." And that was my absolute breaking point. I'm so done with this toxic, fake sweet manipulation garbage. Stepping forward, I laid down the law. "Stop calling her your sister. This is my wife. And inside this household, I'm the one calling the shots. When I say a hard no, I genuinely mean no." Slowly raising one eyebrow, my wife gave me a look like, seriously? Perhaps shouting out that whole "I'm the boss" line wasn't my finest. Yet I'm totally doubling down on it anyway, at least for now. While she keeps staring right through me like that. That exact eyebrow went right back up at me, the classic "I make the rules" glare, and all of my tough guy energy vanished instantly into thin air. Grabbing her hand, I dragged her straight out into the yard, let out a sharp whistle for de Hwang, and slammed the wooden gate shut right behind us. Lighting the oil lamp inside the hut, I poured her a cup of hot tea, unwrapped a block of malt sugar, and immediately launched into giving her a gentle shoulder rub. Full PR crisis management mode activated. "Babe, how's this pressure? Way too intense, too light, or absolute perfection?" Dropping a piece of candy right into her mouth, she flashed a faint smile. "You got that right. You're the man here. You really should be making all the calls at home." And my blood ran ice cold. That fragile little spark of romance I'd spent days low-key nurturing was totally about to get wrecked by my own unfiltered mouth. I scrambled back, saying that was just for show in front of outsiders. "In this crib, you are the absolute boss, and your word is law. Heaven and earth might be huge, but a wife always rules supreme. So what are you gonna do about her now?" she asked me. "Who, that girl? Why would I even care, since she's totally a stranger? Meeting someone for the very first time and already wanting to marry me. Free stuff falling from the sky is never a bunch of pancakes. They're massive boulders, the kind that crush you flat, and she's probably just a total scammer." De Hwang chosen right then to latch onto my pant leg with his sharp teeth. Let go of the hound. There's a stick right by the door. Go chew on that instead. He released me with a cheerful woof and bounced away to savagely attack the stick. My wife murmured quietly, didn't I technically throw myself at you too? Why weren't you stressing that I might be a con artist? My hand slowed down right on her shoulders. After genuinely thinking about it for a second, I told her a gut feeling. I just instinctively knew you'd never lie to me. She went dead silent, staring out at the dark night sky. Babe, I promise you right now no other woman could ever make my heart flutter like this. There's an old saying. One life, one world, one true pair. You are literally all I will ever need in this lifetime. She repeated it softly, her heart skipping a couple of beats. A tiny, amused smile flickered across the mirror on the bed. The little moon spirit was having yet another full-blown existential crisis over this mess. It's totally over. Master is actually simping for this mortal guy. Am I seriously about to get a male master? I renegotiated our household power dynamics, proposing this deal out in public. You gotta listen to me because I'm the man, and I need to save face inside our home. However, you're the one running the entire show. Deal? Sure, you can just be in charge when we're home too. I don't even care. No way. Outside is enough. Wife conquest progress, 5%. Current total sitting at 15%. An hour later. Stepping outside to toss more wood into the kilns, I spotted Manhwa still parking herself right by my front gate. I completely ghosted her, fed the roaring fires, and turned right back around. She bounced up instantly, flashing her most pathetic puppy dog eyes. I am so endlessly sorry about earlier, because I was just completely starstruck by your epic heroism. Please forgive me, heroism. I'm literally just a pig butcher. Just get lost. I stomped back into the yard and slammed the wooden gate shut. Leaning over the fence, she raised her voice. I'm into you and I'm not backing down, which is kind of tragic. Not buying it. She refused to look away, staring straight past the barrier at me and my wife vibing together inside the dim hut, until her knuckles turned ghostly white in her head. That girl chilling next to me should totally be her. Because here's the lowdown on Manhwa. She's a total rebirth. She kicked the bucket in a brutal war slated for next, featuring warring emperors' massive armies, and cultivators shattering entire mountains. She woke up half a month ago with all her memories of the future completely intact. Back in those memories during this exact timeline, I was totally so. Zero wife, zero attachments. She rushed over here planning to lock me down low-key before my future destiny dropped. But my wife wasn't anywhere in her memories. My wife was never supposed to be in the picture here. Something major had shifted an hour later, stepping back outside. I found her sitting right on my stool and looking after my fire. She spun around, flashing a completely calculated grin, the warm firelight striking her face at just the optimal angle, her chin tilted at precisely the right measurement. It was so staged. I noticed you were burning something pretty important, so I went ahead and managed the flames for you. Are you mad at me right now? I glanced at her, glanced at the fire, checked the heat level and just shrugged. Knock yourself out, before turning right back around, stepping inside, and shutting the gate behind me. She sat there completely stunned. She knew damn well how gorgeous she looked in that moment. Every single angle had been mapped out. Any regular guy would have totally melted. Yet my actual vibe was basically sweet, free labor. That's honestly why he's so different, she murmured under her breath, figuring if he were basic, he wouldn't even be worth fighting for. Slumping down onto my own doorstep, I started training little H-Wang. All right, buddy, let's practice that howl for a snack. Fixing his gaze on the pork chunk in my hand, he tilted his cute head sideways and let out a ma-woo-woo, spot on. Tossing the meat through the air, he snatched it mid-flight, chowed down, and zoomed in circles around me, wagging his tail like crazy, then sitting right down. He looked straight up and dropped a woof, marking his very first real bark, which nearly brought tears to my eyes. My eyes remained glued to the hound right after that authentic bark. The hound for 2 whole days. I've been trying to teach you how to howl like a wolf, yet you just bark woof. Seriously, you're a lost cause. As he tilted his head, I thought, wow, you're actually just a dog, while he gently pawed at my pants. And once I scratched his head, he rolled over in absolute bliss, then popped right back up to drop his best howl for me. Oh man, that's my boy, such a good son. The next morning, H-Wang woke me up by giving my entire face a massive slobbery bath. Wiping off all that drool, I hoisted him right up to eye level and deadpanned. Promise me one thing right now. No matter what goes down in your life, never eat poop. He tilted his head again, his tiny eyes practically screaming. Wait, is poop food? Out in the yard doing my morning stretches to get my blood energy flowing, I nearly lost my balance and wiped out completely. Boom, level 2 of Savage Bull Force unlocked overnight yet again. According to the manual, this process should take at least 2 months, proving beyond a doubt that I'm a certified martial arts prodigy. Opening the gate to check on the still-burning kills, I noticed Manhwa was gone. Wait, false alarm, there she was, fast asleep against my woodpile. The chick had literally spent the whole night out on my porch, though I firmly decided to pretend she didn't exist at all. For breakfast, I whipped up some rice porridge loaded with bits of meat, and since we still had about 30 or 40 gin of pork left, there was easily enough food for a few more days. I really need to pick up some chickens, I muttered to myself, because fresh eggs are awesome, and I could totally make century eggs. Century egg and lean pork porridge sounds like an absolute vibe. Meanwhile, my wife was attempting to brush her teeth using a willow stick and ash, marking only the third time in her life she'd ever done it. Judging by her expression, she looked like she was undergoing medieval torture. I had told her that everyone needs to scrub their teeth regularly unless they want nasty breath, so she was just suffering through the process. As we sat down to eat, Joe Mushua predictably rolled up out of nowhere, clutching her stomach and whining, "Kind sir, could I please just have a single bowl? I haven't had a single bite to eat in a full day and night." Without even glancing up, I replied, "Out the gate. Take a left, look for the brick house, and beg the village chief for food. I'm dead broke and got nothing for you." She darted a quick look at the clothesline, completely weighed down with hanging pork, then shifted her gaze to Hwang, who was happily munching meat porridge straight out of his own bowl, and right on cue, tears started streaming down her face. I kept eating, my wife kept eating, and neither of us gave her any reaction whatsoever. Sobbing heavily, she turned tail and sprinted away. Nice. Breakfast finished, my wife gathered the dogs and both cows to take them out for grazing, while I stayed behind to cool down some bricks using water. And reloading the kills for another round. Things were locking into a serious groove lately, no cap. Except for Moon Heavenly. Absolutely nobody was vibing with it, Dow. The tiny spirit trapped inside my wife's mirror was dealing with the fact that my wife barely glanced at the glass anymore, leaving the mini spirit feeling super ghosted and low-key depressed. Speaking of the mirror itself, I grabbed it during cleanup just to check my reflection. My face stared right back, and honestly it was looking fire. Still insanely handsome, which totally explained why the fairy goddess fell for me using a small knife for a quick shave. The resulting clean-shaven look in the glass was genuinely aesthetic. I tossed the mirror back onto the table and headed over to wash the bed sheets inside the mirror's domain. Moon Heavenly Dale lay sprawled on her tiny imaginary bed, staring blankly at the ceiling with dead eyes. This male master has zero shame whatsoever. I decided it was time to wash my hair too, swapping out ash for some good old rice rinsing water, since ash leaves it way too dry. One bucket of rice water later, the runoff came out pitch black, proving how filthy my hair actually was. But once it dried completely, my shoulder-length locks naturally parted ways and fell into soft waves. So I tied it back securely with a grass rope. Taking another peek in the mirror, I barely recognized myself, because I was looking shockingly clean. I always knew I was handsome, but damn, the trapped mirror spirit just stared, whispering, "Is this seriously the same dude?" I bolted outside to start building a proper fence around our 300 square meter yard using heavy logs thick as a thigh, sharpened at the bottom and buried deep. Making it sturdy and aesthetic as hell. Around 9 a.m., my wife returned, and our dog Hwang came sprinting straight toward us, soaking wet, clutching a palm-sized turtle clamped firmly in his jaws while wagging his tail with pure pride. Hwang, you actually caught that yourself. Turtle soup is on tonight, and I'm definitely saving you a bowl. Then I looked up to see my wife staring at me in total disbelief. She literally walked all the way around me in a full circle, studying me from every single angle imaginable with genuine shock written all over her face. I immediately struck my most confident pose. "Didn't know your husband was this main character material, did you?" I flexed my bicep, and she replied, "Stop flexing, you're still way too skinny." Trying hard not to smile, "Just wait. I'm literally bulking up and building actual abs. 8 solid ones." As I dramatically lifted my shirt right after flexing my abs for a sec, I got right back to grinding on the fence. Productivity went absolutely crazy over the next week, as I locked in and locked down every single day, chopping timber and pressing brick molds non-stop, firing 2 kilns simultaneously, while setting up massive fence posts. Blessed with the raw power of 2 bulls, and then some heavy logs were getting hammered deep into the earth in just a few swings. The sole pain point was dragging all that timber down the mountain. My entire property had undergone a total glow-up by week's end. A towering 2-meter wooden barrier now completely enclosed the compound, constructed from authentic thigh-thick logs that were sharpened and buried deep, complete with a 3-meter-wide gate facing the main road, and a cow shed on the left featuring plenty of room to park both carts. Prying eyes could no longer see a thing inside for the very first time. Since landing in this realm, true peace of mind hit me. Meanwhile, the Hwang had already stretched to 1/2 meter long in just 1 week. This pup is scaling up at a rate that defies all biology, though I was way too slammed to question it, and crunched the brick numbers instead, starting with 1,000 on day 1. And after that, running dual kilns pushed the output to nearly 3,000 every single day. adding up to a solid 22,000 bricks across 7 days, which was way more than enough for the entire first floor. Lessons from my past life told me a 3-7 wall layout 1 brick lengthwise, plus another crosswise bound with mortar requires roughly 192 standard bricks for every square meter. It eats up more material than a standard 2-4 wall, but it slaps way harder for insulation, soundproofing, structural load capacity, and earthquake defense. No shortcuts were being taken on my family's house, since the 3-7 wall was locked in for the blueprint, featuring a 100 square meter footprint spanning 2 stories, and totaling 200 square meters for the floorboards between levels. Steel-reinforced concrete was totally out of the question, so sturdy wooden planks would have to do the job. Real cement wasn't an option either, so a custom mix of lime, sand, red clay, and rice water was whipped up old-school style yet totally effective. Digging out the foundation was my next move. After sketching 4 clean lines right around my straw hut, I gripped my shovel and dove straight into the hard labor despite the ground being a rock-solid wasteland. Thanks to the raw muscle power of 2 bulls, the earth was sliced through like warm butter. Leaning against the doorway with a bewildered expression, my wife watched me work, while totally puzzled by my actions. She could easily manifest a grand palace just by thinking about it, yet she kept that thought to herself, and simply got to work preparing the soil in silence. I was about to dig somewhere softer instead, when the heavy sound of hoofbeats shattered the noon silence. Up to my front gate rode 3 massive men mounted on horses, clad in black clothes with their left chests completely exposed. Their bronze muscles were literally bulging everywhere with massive cleavers strapped securely across their backs. They honestly looked like they'd been custom-ordered straight out of a catalog titled Bandits Monthly, with the leader being a bearded wall of meat. Everyone called Wolf Bro. He rolled up to my house shouting, "Annual tribute is 30 gene of grain. Pay up." Stepping outside completely confused, I blurted out, "Tribute? What tribute? Nobody mentioned anything about a tribute to me, Wolf Bro." "Oh, I totally remember this kid. He was so dead broke last year that we totally skipped him, though it looks like his hustle is paying off now," Wolf Bro explained. "We rolled deep from Black Horse Stronghold, and every single person in every village under our turf has to kick up 30 gene of grain per year in exchange for that. We guarantee your safety around here. Don't pay us and don't come crying when bad things go down." So basically, this is just a low-key protection racket. Classic move, I thought, plastering on my most apologetic smile. "Big brother, your own guy just said it. I only recently stopped starving to death. I seriously do not have 30 gene of grain. I swear I don't have it." "Don't lie, your yard is way bigger than the village chief's property. He dropped 50 gene. So you're paying today, or we're making you pay the hard way." Wolf Bro's blood energy instantly surged. As it turned out, he was also a level 2 warrior, which was the exact same level as me, but I seriously had 0 grain, so instead, I grabbed a hefty piece of pork hanging from the clothesline. "Here, take some pork home instead. Man, hold on, Wolf Bro. He's got 2 cows over there." Wolf Bro's face instantly twisted with pure rage. "You can afford to own 2 cows, but you claim you can't pay 30 gene of grain. Do you take me for an absolute idiot?" he roared, jumping off his horse, drawing his massive cleaver and viciously slashing straight at my arm. He wasn't actually trying to murder me. He just wanted to teach me a lesson. But I dodged and snatched my shovel. My axe was way too short against that gigantic blade anyway. Reach seriously matters in a fight, so as our weapons clashed, he was completely shook to find out I was also a level 2 fighter. Cracking his neck, he flashed a menacing grin. "All right, kid, now you've really pissed me off." Without wasting a second, his 2 lackeys started strolling toward my cow shed. "We're just gonna grab the cows while you 2 sort your drama out." Instantly, my vision went completely red. Getting hurt myself is totally fine, but touching my cows is a hard no. "Don't you dare touch my cows," I yelled, swinging my heavy shovel straight at Wolf Bro's incoming cleaver with everything I had in me. With a deafening crash, his massive cleaver chopped my shovel clean in half. Well, that's a major vibe killer, dropping the snapped handle like that. A thick tree trunk roughly the girth of my thigh was snatched up next, measuring 2 meters of pure solid timber, and swung effortlessly like a baseball bat. Surging with beast-like power made the heavy log feel light as a twig. Then things got super surreal as time crawled to a near standstill, while advanced spear techniques suddenly flooded my consciousness. It honestly felt like a combat manual had just been downloaded straight into my brain. Instinctive mastery over long-range polearms took over completely, making the makeshift wooden trunk gripped in my fists feel like a seamless extension of my own limbs before I twisted around and launched a devastating thrust at Wolf Bro from a completely insane angle, sending it crashing right into his chest and launching him airborne backward mid-flight. He hacked up a mouthful of blood before wiping out hard just outside the yard perimeter. Spinning sharply toward the 2 remaining goons who were charging my cattle, I roared, "Taste my spear." and sent both of them flying backward. All three battered bandits scrambled back onto their saddles, drooling blood from busted lips. You'll totally regret crossing the Black Horse stronghold, regret your mother's face, spitting contemptuously onto the dust. I slammed the gate shut, striding inside with a manic grin plastered across my face. Babe, did you catch that action? Three tough warriors handled effortlessly, shaking her head with a soft smile. She teased, you're an absolute beast. But seriously, regarding that memory glitch, where on earth did those elite spear forms drop from? An overpowered cheat ability is definitely not in my inventory, unless it's a passive perk that only triggers during a brutal firefight. My mind was racing through a million wild theories. Patching up the broken handle of my shovel quickly, I returned to manual labor, assuming those low-tier bandits were just loud talkers. Just like every other internet troll or local bully I'd ever faced, boy, was I dead wrong. By dusk, a heavy thunder of galloping hooves echoed across the settlement, multiplying from 3 riders into dozens. Gripping the heavy tree trunk, once more I stepped outside into the yard, where a blinding wall of flickering torches was surging aggressively toward my property from the village center. Cacophonic sounds of terrified men, shouting, screaming women, and crying children filled the night air as helpless villagers were being herded directly in my direction. My wife emerged, urgently prompting me to shove her safely behind the fence line. Stay put inside, I've got this completely under control. Before the lead horseman halted right outside our gate, revealing a menacing ringleader, built like a massive mountain, with a scarred dark face, thick unruly beard, and a single unbroken unibrow line clutched tightly in his grip was a massive iron club topped with a brutal, spiked ball as wide as 2 human heads combined. Are you the one who refused tribute and ambushed my men? Guilty as charged. A cynical laugh broke from him before his expression froze dead cold. Not a single soul disrespects Black Horse stronghold, period. Forced to their knees, the entire village cowered right outside my gate. Up front, the village chief and his family were clearly visible, while children sobbed uncontrollably. Everyone trembled. This is your fault, sneered the dark-faced brute. You refused to pay, so now they take the hit. I'll ask just once more. 60 gin of grain, or else for every refusal someone dies. Hovering right over the chief's head, the spiked weapon was raised high. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth practically cracked. If it were a fair one-on-one fight, I'd take him down, but this wasn't combat. He was using helpless hostages. Then the screams broke out, coming not from the bandits but my own villagers. Why, Yuchen, why don't you just drop dead? Screeched Auntie Tsuihua. You're the stubborn one who refused to pay, chimed in Widow Lu. This is entirely on you. Big Dog and his 2 cronies joined in next, followed quickly by half the village. Kill him, spare us, it's all his fault. These people. I've never done them wrong, never stolen a thing, never cheated anyone, never caused trouble. Yet right now, they're screaming for my execution simply because a bandit threatened them, and scapegoating the outsider is just easier. Bloodshot eyes and shaking hands betrayed my surging rage, yet the chief's life hung in the balance beneath that spiked iron. Fine, I growled through gritted teeth. I'll pay. Stride into the yard, I untied the bull previously seized from the thugs and shoved it forward. I lack grain, but take this cow instead. It's worth 100 times more than 60 gin of grain. Now let them go. Laughing mockingly, the dark-faced leader had his men grab the beast before riding off. As the villagers climbed back up, a handful simply shook their heads and quietly dispersed home. The majority, however, stayed behind to curse me out, shouting and blaming me for everything that just transpired. Furious, the village chief stamped his foot hard on the dirt and wheeled around on them. Shut your traps, every single one of you. The crowd fell dead silent. How dare you point fingers at him? Yuchen has lived here for 3 or 4 years now, and he finally scraped together enough to buy a cow, and he literally handed it over just to keep y'all safe. The man only owns a single patch of wasteland. Where on earth was he supposed to pull 30 gin of grain from Jutsuwa? I'm well aware of your shady little games. Zip it because I'm still running this village. He scolded them down until the whole crowd slunk home in dead silence, being the only guy in the entire settlement who had ever cracked open a book. Meant everyone listened when he talked. Once the crowd had cleared out, I approached the chief with a heavy heart, saying, Uncle Zhang, thanks for having my back out there. Please step inside for some tea. I'm so sorry this whole mess started because of me. Letting out a heavy sigh, the village chief followed me inside as soon as his family laid eyes on the yard with towering stacks of green bricks covering every inch. Their jaws literally dropped. Yichuan, where on earth did all these bricks appear from? This is worth tens of taels. Just how many wild boars did you hunt down? I chuckled. I didn't buy them, I baked them myself. They're every bit as solid as the ones sold in town. Go ahead and inspect them. If you think I'm lying, you can make bricks. Grabbing a couple, the chief tapped them together and nearly suffered a heart attack on the spot. These matched store-bought quality completely, and Auntie Zhang's eyes lit right up. Little E, can you show me how you? The chief coughed loudly to cut her off. That's his own business. Brick-making is big-time money. So don't go prying. She threw her husband a dirty look. But he wasn't wrong. And I certainly wasn't spilling any beans. This operation was my future brick factory, my ultimate cash cow. I respect the chief, but I'm not handing out trade secrets while my pockets are still completely empty. Today's little drama just drove home a major point in this brutal world. Wealth and influence are the only things that genuinely count. Take those same villagers screaming for my blood 5 minutes ago. If I happened to be filthy rich and powerful, they'd be kissing the ground I walk on. Handing over my hard-earned cash to people who just told me to drop dead wouldn't be pure kindness. It would be absolute brain rot. After finishing their tea, the chief's family finally headed out. Walking back, his son asked if hunting was genuinely that lucrative. Shaking his head, the chief replied, "Didn't you see him hauling that massive 2-meter log with a single hand? The kid's turned into an absolute beast. You couldn't even budge that thing with both arms." That night, staring blankly at the ceiling from my bed, sleep refused to come. Cutting through the shadows, I murmured, "Babe, once I get my strength back, I'm rolling up to that Black Horse stronghold to take back what's mine. Nobody ghosts my property, so drop it and hit the sack. You've got to grind tomorrow," she whispered softly, and I shut my eyes. Eventually, my breathing leveled out. Deep in the dead of night, my wife quietly fluttered her eyelids open, plotting vengeance against those bandits. Her soul power had already locked onto the dark-faced leader. Nobody crosses her man and gets away scot-free. Sliding out of bed, she placed one bare foot on the cold floorboards. My voice sliced through the darkness, asking where she was headed. She froze instantly before stammering, "The outhouse. Oh, hurry back, I'm waiting up for you." "Why on earth are you waiting?" She snapped back, her voice tightening. "I'm going to the outhouse." Confessing she needed the restroom to a man, even if he was her own husband, was utterly mortifying for her. Silence hung in the air for a moment until, just as her hand touched the door, "You're not really just a normal village girl, are you?" She dead stopped right in her tracks. Inside the divine mirror, Moon Heavenly Dao's jaw hit the floor in absolute shock. How did this mortal piece this together? Hopping out of bed, I flicked on the oil lamp, strode across the room, and did something I'd never dared before. Wrapping my arms around her from behind, Moon Heavenly Dao felt her eyes bulge completely out of her skull. He's actually hugging the Empress. This stunt is going to shatter the heavens for centuries. My wife's whole body locked up stiff as a board. Yet she didn't shove me away or vaporize me into dust. That's basically a green light, right? Wife conquest progress at 5%, bringing the current total to 20%. Resting my chin gently on her shoulder, I kept my voice low. "Right from day one, I knew you weren't ordinary. You're way too gorgeous and your clothes never pick up a speck of dirt. That robe is low-key legendary material. Even a total dummy could tell you aren't just a regular person." "So you knew?" she replied, her tone dropping into deep ice. "Yeah, and what about it?" Her voice grew even frostier, and I could feel her muscles tense up like she'd been stabbed in the back. It felt as though I'd been playing dumb this whole time, spinning some secret web behind her back. That sting cut deeper than anything she had ever experienced, because somewhere along this wild journey, without even admitting it to herself, she had actually started giving a damn about me. I released my grip, stepping around to look her in the eye, locking her gaze dead in the eyes. "Think back to Tiger Bro and his crew of thugs, remember? Their boss bragged that his uncle was a level 3 warrior, swearing he'd roll up the next day to flatline me. Stress had me sweating bullets all day, yet absolutely zero souls showed up. Not a single human being, because I slept way past my alarm that morning and totally forgot to beg you to wake me at noon like planned. Naturally, I figured those clowns definitely did pull up, only for somebody to totally smoke them before they even reached my doorstep. So my current theory is, yeah, my ultimate deduction is this, as I threw up my fingers, breaking down the logic like some hardcore detective. Somehow, you dropped a level 3 warrior, even though your frame is way too low-key to be a fighter yourself. Buddhist cultivators are strictly monks or nuns living that temple life, and you're clearly not that, which pretty much leaves Confucian scholars, alongside Taoist practitioners, but scholars give off that heavy bookworm vibe, which is a total mismatch for you, meaning you've got to be a Taoist since you're rocking a spirit root, and actually cultivating. My hype kept scaling up with every single word dropping from my mouth, meaning your rank has to sit at least at the Kai training stage, right? Am I spot on or what? You're totally a Kai training Taoist. I fixed my gaze right on her, wearing the most deadpan, serious, analytical face I could possibly whip up. Inside her head, she was low-key dying of laughter, having stressed out big time that I somehow figured out she was a universe-destroying empress. But nope, plot twist. I somehow brilliantly deduced she was merely a beginner cultivator. Literally the absolute lowest tier above an ordinary human. That massive wave of relief crashed over her so fast that any lingering rage or pain instantly vanished into thin air, giving me this totally bizarre, sideways look. She muttered, "You're right. I knew it, as I clapped my hands together. Any normal girl who hasn't touched water in 10 days would smell funky, but you're totally fresh, which is definitive proof of cultivation. Her expression went totally blank, with metaphorical anime sweat drops practically etching onto her forehead, at how ridiculous my reasoning was. Hold up, don't fantasy books claim Kai training cultivators can straight up fly? Were you planning to roll out and check those black horse bandits? Take me with you? Oh, please take me flying. I've literally never caught air a single time in my life. Shooting me a weird, side-eye glare, she responded with the tiniest, sarcastic smirk. You seriously want me to carry you while flying? Hello, I'm literally pregnant. My entire hype train derailed instantly, causing me to slump face first onto the mattress. Damn it, I completely slipped my mind about the baby. Whatever, scrap the whole bandit raid. It's honestly just one cow, she added with a teasing, playful tone. Since cultivators of Tao bypass normal pregnancy complications entirely, unlike everyday women do. Combat won't harm the baby whatsoever, so honestly, do you still want me to take you flying? Hell yes, I sprang up instantly, clutching her waist for dear life. I'm totally ready, and I'm never letting go. Take me, wait, we're still inside. Right out the door, I bolted straight into the courtyard, bouncing on my heels like a hyped-up kid on Christmas morning. With a calm stroll, she flashed a gentle smile and extended her hand. Just hold on. I grabbed it, and instantly my feet lifted off the dirt. Wait, where's the cloud? I blurted out, staring blankly at the empty air underneath us. Aren't we supposed to stand on a cloud? She frowned slightly, mentally debating. Does flying actually require a cloud? Nah, but apparently he thinks it does. With a quick wave of her hand, a fluffy cloud materialized right beneath our boots. Oh yeah, that's it. Now hit the gas, go, go, go. All right, so what she considered a casual cruise was basically the speed of a fighter jet. Had she not shielded me inside an invisible protective barrier, the roaring wind would have completely ripped my face off. The scenery below turned into a total blur. Mountains, rivers, and vast forests vanished in mere seconds. Babe, slow down, I can't process anything. She glanced over at me, this grown man completely gawking at everything like a toddler seeing snow for the very first time, and chuckled softly. Man, he is low-key entertaining. We touched down just outside the Black Horse stronghold moments later. Massive wooden gates, imposing watchtowers, and flickering torches. It honestly looked like a legit fortress. Babe, don't help yet. Let me handle the fighting first. I didn't get enough action today, but if things get out of hand, I'll holler and you can swoop right in. She shook her head with a helpless smile. Fine, your call. Reaching casually into thin air right after, she pulled out a gleaming silver spear, making my brain totally short-circuit. The weapon was breathtaking, 2 full meters of brilliant, polished silver, with intricate patterns gracefully tracing the shaft while the spearhead radiated a biting, razor-sharp glow. This is for you. They call it Jade Dragon's Cry. A storage space. That's definitely a storage space technique, right? Oh man, I totally get it now. Seizing the spear, I tested its heft. It felt absolute perfection, like it was custom-made for me. Little did I know what this spear. Crafted straight from the skeletal remains of a genuine jade dragon, which she'd accidentally wasted with a single casual backhand. She felt low-key guilty about the whole thing while roaming the cosmos, so she reforged that entire beast skeleton, spirit, and all, into this absolute unit of a weapon. She'd also locked away like 99.99% of its raw energy, seeing as the unlocked mode would have literally vaporized me into stardust. Merely from gripping the shaft, I'm obsessed. Now go camp up there and watch your man cook. She gave a nod, floated upward, whipped up a cloud, and perched on it looking like an absolute deity taking in a high-end theater production. Pivoting to face the towering fortress gates, my adrenaline was totally peaking, while the silver spear caught the moonlight with a sick gleam. Sentries locked eyes on me and whipped out their bows, shouting, "Who dares approach Black Horse Stronghold after hours?" I smirked, gave my spear a slick spin, and rushed them. Your grandpa, that's who, catch these spear vibes. Boom, a single sweep of my weapon, and those massive timber doors violently blew right off their hinges, crashing flat to the earth. Double impact, the strike followed by the drop, absolutely stunning. Who's raiding Black Horse Stronghold? Take him down. Torches suddenly flared everywhere as hundreds of bandits swarmed my way, led by 3 big bosses stepping forward. The primary boss, jade-faced tiger, towering and pale-skinned, clutched a sleek blade, studying me like I was some impossible math equation. He couldn't figure out, why on earth would a level 2 warrior assault his stronghold at midnight? The second boss, flowing cloud leopard, was a total pretty boy sporting twin crimson daggers at his waist. And of course, there was my old bestie Blackface, the exact guy who boosted my cow. Catching sight of me made his eyes pop wide open with pure rage, shouting, "You again? You've got a death wish." He didn't even bother drawing his own weapon, figuring a level 9 powerhouse going up against a level 2 would be straight up disrespectful to his bare hands. He charged forward, the ground trembling heavily with every stride while his blood chi was boiling so intensely I could feel the scorching heat radiate from 10 meters away. One massive fist rocketed straight toward my chest, so I jabbed my spear right at him. He casually flicked it away with a single finger and threw another punch. What the heck? I barely managed to snap my spear horizontally just in time to block, as his fist smashed into the metal shaft, sending a lightning-fast shockwave surging straight through into my arms. Every bone in my body shrieked as I got violently rocketed back 15 yards before my boots finally managed to grip. The dirt total numbness had completely taken over my arms. Gasping heavily for air, I shook them out. The polearm held its ground without even a slight bend, seriously solid. Locking eyes with the whole crew of bandits staring me down, I stepped right up. One deliberate stride after another, aiming my weapon straight at Black Face. Not that I was actually ready, he flashed a predator's grin and barked, "Let's go again," giving his neck a sharp crack while right behind him, a massive blood-red bear materialized directly out of his aura. This was the classic trademark of a peak level 9 warrior, whose inner blood force has condensed into a tangible physical shape. The training manual explicitly broke this down, showing how at level 9 your vital energy grows so overwhelmingly thick that it manifests as the literal spirit animal of your technique. Meaning if I somehow maxed out Savage Bull Force, someday a glowing Crimson Bull would back me up, which would be sick, except for the minor detail that he's level 9 and I'm stuck at level 2. Leaving a massive gap of 7 entire stages between us, his 7,200 gene level totally dwarfs my puny 16. So this isn't even a real fight. It's just pure math. And the numbers are screaming that I'm totally cooked, yet, since I'd already kicked his front door wide open, backing down wasn't exactly in the cards for me either. Flashing my coldest smirk while raising my spear, I called out, "Just a basic level 9 warrior. Guess this spear is about to school you on some manners. Let's see if you can even take a single punch." He sneered before charging again, moving way faster this time. The surrounding air literally shrieked under the pressure of his fist. Planting my feet firmly and locking my grip on the shaft, I watched him barrel straight toward me like a runaway freight train, while every single instinct in my nervous system screamed panic mode at once. Screw it. Time to tag and muscle, hurling my spear straight up into the open sky. I yelled for backup. A shadowy figure instantly sliced through the clouds, snatching the weapon cleanly out of midair. My wife exhaled a single icy breath with absolute effortless grace, and that one tiny syllable slammed into every single thug in the fortress like a sudden thunderclap echoing deep inside their skulls. Blood instantly began gushing from the eyes, ears, nose, and mouths of all 3 leaders as they stared upward in sheer terror. Hovering gracefully above them was a woman clad in midnight black robes. Wielding a gleaming silver spear while wrapping tightly around her frame was a vibrant jade dragon, alive, snarling, and radiating blinding light. Its ancient, burning eyes locked onto them with pure, unadulterated wrath. Every last bandit stationed across the stronghold hit the dirt and dropped to their knees all at once. Those 3 bigwigs literally buckled right then, and they're like soggy noodles. Anybody in their dimension capable of summoning a beast like that sits on such a totally different tier that fighting back isn't just pointless. It's straight up mathematically impossible with 0 effort. My better half casually flicked the polearm toward the heavens. A deafening roar ripped from the dragon as it shot straight up and punched a clean-cut breach right through the heavy cloud deck. Moonlight poured down through that opening like a stage spotlight, blanketing hundreds of petrified faces in a pale glow while I got full-on chills. The awesome kind, obviously gliding down right beside me. She hovered as I instantly flashed her a massive thumbs-up, pure perfection, though a brief flicker in her eyes made me wonder if that was low-key pride. Centuries of pulling worship from millions of followers had passed her by, leaving her completely unfazed. Yet a single compliment from her scrawny hubby somehow genuinely made her day. Snatching the spear back into my grip, I gave it a casual twirl. Wait a minute. Where'd the giant lizard go? How is it totally gone now, giving me a totally blank stare? She reminded me that I lack any spiritual energy whatsoever. Talk about a buzzkill. So I strolled right over to Blackface, who was currently kneeling in defeat with blood seeping freely from every single pore on his face, and began tapping his skull rhythmically with the metal spear shaft. Where'd all that main character energy go? Come on, flex for me again. Give me back that intimidating glare you had earlier. Though he stayed totally silent, his complexion having gone deep purple from pure embarrassment. Shoving the spear butt deep into the dirt, I cracked my knuckles loudly and announced to the crowd, "You were all high and mighty about me surviving your hit earlier. Well, let's test if you can absorb mine this time around," putting my entire body weight and momentum into it. I channeled every drop of my blood energy and drove my fist square into his chest. The guy didn't budge so much as a single millimeter while I ricocheted backward 4 whole steps, aggressively shaking my throbbing hand. He looked down at me like I was an annoying mosquito that had just landed on his jacket. Classic level 9 warrior defense, fully reinforced dermal layers, muscle tissue, and skeletal density. I could wail on him sunrise to sunset, and he'd probably just yawn out of boredom. Muttering a quick curse under my breath, I shook out my stinging fingers and yelled out, "Where's my damn COW? Somebody better hand over my bovine right this second." The remaining 2 kingpins just stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Imagine pulling a whole raid on their massive fortress strictly over a lost farm animal stepping forward with surprisingly smooth diplomatic energy. Jade-faced Tiger cleared his throat. "Might I inquire as to your honorable title? For I am the head chief." Jade-faced Tiger, this right here is my second in command. Flowing Cloud Leopard, and the one who managed to trigger your wrath happens to be my third brother, Black Face Bear. Though honestly, one detail crossed my mind: these local bandits sure love rocking these edgy fantasy gamer tags. My eyes suddenly lit up while I squared my shoulders back. After clearing my throat, I dropped that heavy-duty gravitas. The Dust Heavenly Emperor is literally who I am. Behind me, both chiefs froze up dead in their tracks out of pure respect. My wife quickly turned her head away, trying desperately to hold back her laughter. Under her breath, I could faintly hear her muttering, "Dust Heavenly Emperor? What on earth is even going on inside his head?" Bowing deeply, they chanted, "We offer our greetings to the Dust Heavenly Emperor." Giving them a casual wave, I told them to chill out. "We had zero beef until you guys boosted my cow. Just hand it back and we are totally cool." Right then, Jade-faced Tiger suddenly put on a serious face. "Dust Heavenly Emperor, let's be real, we aren't just run-of-the-mill bandits. We operate as an actual resistance movement. The Emperor is totally losing his grip and past his prime. With his 8 princes at each other's throats, everything is total chaos, splitting apart the Taoist, Buddhist, and warrior factions. The whole nation is collapsing, while the Qinian Empire next door is gearing up for a full-on invasion. Sitting right on the border with 3,000 li of rugged mountains, we've got the enemy staring us down from across the line. This stronghold was built purely to survive whatever is coming our way. If you and your missus would step up and lead us, nope. We would even make you Supreme Commander, hard pass. I'm just a simple village guy, and my entire life goal is basically just a wife, some kids, and a cozy bed. 2 empires want to throw hands. That's a skill issue on their part, right, babe?" She just nodded. She genuinely loved her quiet life, simple, peaceful, and zero drama. Still, Dust Heavenly Emperor, we're right on the front lines here. When the war drops, we'll take the first hit. Well, then we'll just peace out. Bye. Limping over slowly, Blackface Bear dragged my cow back to me. Inspection passed. Yep, that's definitely mine, and I flashed a grin. "Pleasure doing business, catch you literally never." Without even looking back once, I turned on my heel and strolled off. Wife, kids, warm bed, that was literally the whole master plan. A bit later, my wife grabbed both me and the cow, and we blasted straight up into the stratosphere, leaving the stronghold chiefs staring as we vanished into the clouds. 1 guy, 1 girl, and 1 thoroughly traumatized cow. The poor bovine finally touched ground, foaming at the mouth with an absolute blank stare. It had never in a million years imagined flying was part of livestock life. The next morning, it was right back to the grind. After breakfast, my wife took the cows out for some morning grazing while I broke ground on the foundation, until hoofbeats echoed again. Snatching up my trusty tree trunk, I marched outside, spoiling for a fight. Instead, Blackface Bear hopped down from his horse, bowed low, and stammered out, "Dust Heavenly Emperor, I was totally blind and foolish. Please be so kind as to accept our sincere apology." Along with this massive payload of 600 gin of grain, heavy sacks were being hauled off the horses by 6 burly dudes. "I'm not taking your stuff, man." My big bro clutched his chest, totally pressed. "Seriously, if y'all don't take this, we literally can't show our faces back home." That's when his eyes locked onto my fresh foundation trench. "Yo, are you building something heavy-duty? Let us lend a hand, bro." Before I could even shoot them down, they had already dropped straight into the pit clutching shovels. One of them started recklessly jabbing away at the dirt. "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what are you even doing, bro? See this chalk line? Dig right along the line, not just wherever you feel like." Following a quick back and forth, I realized they seriously weren't going to budge, so I did what any rational guy would do. I grabbed a stick and started bossing them around like a site foreman. Just as my wife rolled back in with the cows, she caught me towering above the trench, pointing my little wooden stick straight at 7 massive warriors who were obediently digging right where I told them to. "What's even happening here?" she asked. "They won't leave, so I might as well milk some free labor out of them. Guess I'll cook up some lunch for them then." She nodded casually before stepping back inside. Meanwhile, just past the wooden fence, Big Dog and his two sidekicks were crouching low in the bushes, peeking straight through the closed gate. "Yo, Big Dog, bro, do you think they're literally beating him to a pulp in there?" "Gotta be, but wait, why aren't we hearing any screams at all? Black Horse Stronghold is practically the king of the mountain. That loser kid is totally cooked." They stared hard at the gate, burning up with pure jealousy. That yard was way bigger than anything they could ever dream of owning. Suddenly, Big Dog's greedy eyes drifted over to the 7 gorgeous horses tied up right outside the fence with zero supervision. A deeply cursed idea sparked inside his empty skull. All this time, Big Dog and his 2 morons had been hiding low in the thick foliage, fully convinced the bandits were inside serving me a beatdown. That was until Big Dog spotted those 7 unattended horses parked outside and cooked up what he thought was a masterclass plan, swiping one to cash out in town. Wearing straw hats pulled down tight to look like discount ninjas, they crept over stealthily. As Big Dog reached out to grab the reins of the last animal, a massive black stallion, the beast shot him a dirty look, spun around instantly, and drop-kicked him so violently that he launched through the air, coughed up a mouthful of blood, and crashed flat onto the turf. The enraged stallion immediately reared up on its hind legs to stomp the other 2 goons, but because its lead rope was securely hitched to a tree, it couldn't quite reach them. Letting out a furious snort, the 2 sketchy goons swiftly hoisted up Big Dog's limp, knocked out body, and bolted straight into the thick bushes, stepping out to investigate the commotion. One bandit found absolutely nada and retreated. Major Horse MVP win right there. Meanwhile, I was low-key living my absolute best life indoors, clutching a wooden stick right in the dead center of the yard, acting like a total boss. I bossed around 7 massive warriors like a hard-hat foreman, chanting dig 1-to-1. 1-to-1 non-stop. Every single one of these guys was way stronger than me, meaning hardcore manual labor was basically their ultimate superpower. The entire layout foundation got completely excavated in a single morning, surpassing a grueling job that would have totally wrecked me for weeks. Chop for lunch. I hacked up 8 gin of pork, whipped up several dishes, and steamed 5 whole pots of rice using their own stolen grain stash. Obviously, since my personal rice supply was practically empty when the afternoon hit, I mixed up cement, lime, sand, red clay, and rice water into a paste, giving them a quick tutorial on bricklaying. And by twilight, the whole framework structure was solid brick and mortar. Those guys were absolute grinding machines. After serving them dinner, I sent them packing back home. Blackface Bear rode away while Loki venting to his crew, declaring he's out for tomorrow, and sending the second boss instead, arguing it was his dumb idea anyway, so why should they suffer all the grunt work. His worn-out cronies nodded in sheer misery, complaining that this gig was way more exhausting than an actual brawl. That night, while stretched out in bed with Dahung cozied up right near my pillow, I turned to my wife, proposing we head into town tomorrow, stressing that we needed veggie seeds because October was right around the corner. Arguing that planting right now guarantees fresh produce all winter long, she gave a brief "sounds good," followed by a telling pause, then murmured very quietly, sounding like an afterthought. She didn't drop a single other word after that. Though I had a strong hunch her malt sugar stash was totally depleted. Once again, the next morning started with breakfast, feeding the cows, loading up the wooden cart, and setting off for town alongside my wife. Early morning mist was weaving gracefully through the mountain peaks, rendering the whole vibe legitimately picturesque. Upon reaching town, I parked at the official cart watching hub and collected a numbered wooden token. You just match it up when leaving and spare a few when for the hour's log. It's a super chill system, but today was different. With my hair neatly tied back and posture locked in straight, I was low-key looking pretty sharp. My wife had also ditched her signature look, changing out of that dark robe into regular village woman clothes. For weeks now, she had been steadily toning down her looks to low-key mode, making her drop-dead gorgeous aesthetic merely cute, instead of mind-blowing. Strolling side by side, we finally passed for a normal matching couple. My eyes caught a candy figurine vendor. Right away, an old man was expertly sculpting sweet syrup into cute animal shapes. My pulse spiked instantly back on Earth. These treats were everywhere at rural street markets. They completely vanished once everyone migrated to big cities. 2 rabbit-shaped ones were snagged by me and handed over to my wife with a telling her to try it. Perched right on her shoulder, super sweet and cozy, totally invisible to anyone except for her, the tiny moon spirit was bouncing up and down with pure excitement. Permission to head outdoors had finally been granted to her, and the bustling town market was blowing her mind. Completely every single sight felt totally fresh and fascinating. Taking a nibble of the sugar rabbit, my wife flashed a genuine smile. "It genuinely tastes good," I chuckled while handing the old man a couple of coins. Then we kept walking hand in hand through the bustling crowd, while different vendors were pointed out by me, along with a breakdown of how their goods were crafted. Every time she dropped a word of approval, I totally puffed up like a proud peacock. A girl rushed past us, leaving a trail of expensive perfume behind. No notice was given by me, yet she abruptly stopped, spun around, and locked eyes on our backs. Is that him? She muttered to the personal servant walking beside her, the exact same serving girl who had previously dropped off my soup at the Grand Zhang estate. Isn't that the guy? Whispered the serving girl before jogging up to tap me on the shoulder, spinning around immediately. Made her face familiar to me. Rizio die from the wealthy Zhang household, right? She looked low-key impressed that my memory was still sharp, before gently guiding her young mistress, Zhang Yuching, forward, that high-class young lady whose stubborn eating disorder had been accidentally cured by my humble pig soup with slightly pink cheeks. She offered a polite bow and murmured softly, "Thank you so much for those brilliant recipes you left us, sir." A quick laugh escaped me as I brushed it off. No need for thanks, since I'm the one who should be grateful. Those simple recipes paired with a single pig scored me 900 taels. That unexpected cash literally saved our lives, keeping her gaze fixed downward. She offered a shy smile and froze in place. Silence filled the air completely. Keeping the chat going was obviously her goal, but she lacked any conversational skills. The awkward vibe in the air was getting thick enough to slice with a butter knife, so a quick glance was shot toward my wife, keeping a totally straight face with zero panic. I cleared my throat like a boss. Well, if there's nothing else to discuss, I'll be taking my wife shopping now. I specifically dropped the word wife instead of just saying babe. Different vibes definitely call for a totally different vocabulary. Zhang Yuching parted her lips to drop some words, but her loyal servant totally jumped right in. "Mr. Yi, we're all shopping anyway, why don't we just walk together?" Glancing up at me, the young miss flashed some super hopeful eyes. I paused for literally 1 second, turned to my wife asking, "What do you think? Whatever you decide." Turning right back around, I told them maybe another time. We're just grabbing a few quick things before heading back home. Then I grabbed my wife's hand and walked off, completely refusing to look back. I'm low-key building a model marriage here, leaving zero room for any weird misunderstandings. Securing the veggie seeds and everything else straight off my list. I was about to exit when a dazzling jewelry shop caught my eye. Looking at my wife, then checking out the shop, I glanced back at my wife with my eyes totally blazing with sudden inspo, pulling her right inside before she could even object. The stunning display hit me like a brick wall. Ancient women's accessories are honestly no joke, featuring gorgeous hairpins, fancy earrings, and stunning pendants, bracelets, forming an entire universe of shiny things. "Babe, pick whatever catches your eye because I'm buying." She gave me a super confused look, asking, "Why are you buying me jewelry?" "Because every single woman in this town is rocking some, and since you're the prettiest one here, if they have it, you definitely should too." She shook her head with a small, soft smile, saying it's way too much trouble to wear, though it's pretty. Snatch up a wooden hairpin, I immediately tried to stick it straight into her hair. After grabbing a handful of her silky locks, I suddenly realized with total dread that I have absolutely no clue how women's hairstyles work. Freezing midair while holding both hair and pin, I looked like a complete goofball trying to solve a Rubik's Cube. My face flushed bright red as she genuinely laughed out loud, snatched the pin right from my hand, and got her hair styled in 3 seconds flat. Looking up at me then with a remarkably gentle smile, she asked, "See? Isn't this gorgeous?" True beauty isn't really about fancy accessories. It's entirely about the person wearing them. Something bright flickered deep in her eyes, prompting her to pick up a pair of jade earrings, put them on, and deliver an effect that was utterly devastating. "How about right now, you smooth-talking stunner?" she teased, stripping everything off in a flash and pulling me by the hand to head out. Hold on, you're not actually buying them." Turning to the shopkeeper while staring at her looking jaw-droppingly gorgeous, I blurted out, "How much for both the hairpin and the earrings?" "2 taels total for the wooden pin and the jade earrings," came the reply. "That's a total steal." Plunking 2 taels right down on the counter, I snatched up both pieces and swung back toward my wife wearing pure puppy dog eyes. "Please put these on, you look absolutely breathtaking." Arching an eyebrow, she countered, "So I'm not gorgeous without them," throwing my brain into total panic mode. "No, you're drop-dead gorgeous all the time," I stammered, meaning that you're already stunning and these just crank up the gorgeousness to 11. It's basically like stacking pure perfection on top of perfection. HMPH. Despite the scoff, a smile cracked across her face. Taking the trinkets, she slid them right into place herself. My heart did a massive happy dance seeing her sport something I bought her. All on my own, this is straight-up peak husband status. Suddenly, a voice shattered the vibe like a brick crashing through a plate glass window. "Well, kind sir, fancy seeing you here too," chirped Zhao Mushua, the rebirth girl, bright-eyed and standing right at the boutique entrance alongside some other fancy-looking young woman whose face I didn't know. The second that happened, my wife's smile evaporated like it was never even there. Honestly, I'd almost completely forgotten Zhao Mushua was a thing, seeing as it had been over a week. Yet here she popped up inside a jewelry store, like a bad penny. Ignoring her completely, I muttered, "Let's bounce." With a nod from my wife, we blew right past the newcomer, without either of us sparing a single backward glance. Turns out, though, Zhao Mushua hadn't been wasting any time, having somehow buddy-buddy-ed up with some chick named Jiang Jiazhou, who happened to be the county magistrate's daughter. After playing the hero by saving her from outlaws, she spun a total sob story about how madly in love with me she supposedly was, how she'd practically thrown herself at me, and how some home-wrecking had swooped in and stolen me away, a classic victim performance. It was 3 parts pitiful, 3 parts heartbroken, 4 parts regretful, and came with on-demand waterworks. Buying the whole act hook, line, and sinker, this Jiazhou girl came storming after us like a self-appointed vigilante. You cold-hearted monster. Mushua Jie cares about you so much, yet you dump her for this random chick. And you, pointing an accusing finger at my wife, you totally snatched him. Staring straight at this total stranger screaming at my spouse, I could literally feel my blood pressure shooting through the roof. Cold-hearted. I literally laid eyes on that woman one single time. Some local bandits were dealt with by me on her behalf, so she offered her hand in marriage. But I turned her down flat. Since when did saying no to a proposal make a guy cold-hearted? And don't you dare talk smack about my wife. But she's totally into you, dude. Why won't you just accept her? So if someone crushes on me, marriage is suddenly mandatory. Is that seriously how the law works here? Because I'd love to see that statute written down somewhere. My dad is the county magistrate. You know, I can easily have you thrown in jail. For what exactly? What felony did I commit just strolling down a public street while married? She was about to sick her guards on us when Joe Mushua smoothly stepped in and reeled her back. Let them walk. I'll deal with them another day. Such obvious manipulation was honestly driving me nuts. Joe Mushua didn't actually want Zio to force the issue right then. Instead, she wanted to use her as a pawn to slowly drive a wedge between my wife and me. Toxic but low-key smart. Once we got out of sight, I was still fuming, completely shook. Just because her daddy runs the whole county, she thinks she can arrest innocent people for walking around as soon as I stack enough cash. I'm buying an official government title just to outrank her. My wife glanced over at me with an amused smirk. You actually want to be a government official? Nah, way too much drama. Having people breathing down your neck all day being wealthy is a massive flex. Instead, if things go south, you just grab your bags and ghost. Zero paperwork involved. She just chuckled and shook her head. We loaded up on malt sugar, tools, and farming seeds before climbing onto the ox cart for the trip back home along the dusty road. My wife unwrapped a block of malt sugar and held it out toward me. Refusing to take it with my fingers, I leaned forward and popped my mouth wide open. She rolled her eyes hard, but slid it right between my lips anyway. Wife conquest progress at 5%, bringing our current total to a solid 30%. Only 2 weeks ago, this girl was looking at me like a total stranger she was merely forced to tolerate. Now she's out here feeding me candy. Historic, unprecedented times. That growth curve is looking gorgeous, bouncing along the path while chewing my candy. A brilliant idea hit me. Babe, what if I set up a legit brick factory right here in our village? We hire the locals to handle the heavy lifting. We manufacture the bricks. They do the manual work, and we cash out on the sales. Steady passive income and a scalable business model. She furrowed her brows slightly. Would those villagers even work for us? They acted super hostile the last time we saw them standing up straight on the bumpy, moving cart. I grabbed a stick like a professor's pointer and boldly declared, "This right here is where your business instincts fail you, Mike. Profit is what everybody is chasing out here, since that is just the golden rule of economics, raw muscle rules, when it comes to a fight. While business is all about connections, hand over whatever they are craving for, and they will hook you up with what you want. Those exact haters who were trash-talking me last week will be begging for gigs once the cash starts flowing." Glancing up at me, she stood atop an ox cart under the glaring sun, giving a twig a little wave while dropping free capitalism lectures to a cow and a low-key immortal empress before letting out a soft chuckle. "Fine, I'll totally roll with your vibe." Perched right on the ox cart, I was just rambling non-stop about capitalism and brick factory logistics, feeling like an absolute business mastermind, while my wife listened closely, nodding along until I threw out terms like stock shares and labor contracts, causing her to tilt her head and ask, "You're talking about imperial court manipulation tactics, right?" Spot on, total imperial court moves. That's definitely what I meant. Cold sweat was quickly wiped away from my forehead. Seriously, I need to get my act together and stop accidentally slipping into modern lingo. Not a single soul out here has any clue what capital or shareholders even are. Stepping past the tree line as my handmade wooden compound finally came into view, a wave of massive pride hit me. Just a month ago, this place was literally a wrecked straw hut. Yet now it stands as a legit fenced yard featuring brick kilns, a functional cowshed, and a freshly dug foundation once that two-story brick house is fully built. This property is going to be the absolute flex of the entire village. Then my eyes caught someone chilling on a rock right outside my front gate, looking like a scrawny old dude in tattered rags munching on a steamed bun, with messy hair, a dirty face, and a noticeably lame leg. Hopping down from the cart, I walked right up. "Excuse me, old-timer. Are you local to this village? Because I don't think I've ever crossed paths with you." Lifting his head, he locked cloudy eyes straight onto me, just staring blankly without a single blink, which felt low-key creepy. "Oh, sir, please cut it out with the intense staring. It's not like I'm in debt to you or anything," with him nodding in agreement before instantly choking on his bun, taking a quick swig from his wine gourd, and wheezing loudly. "Well then, why are you camping out at my gate? Can't wander into the village. Since I don't know a soul there, though you don't know me either." Totally done trying to argue with this weirdo, I just walked inside after unloading the cart. I was leading the cow into the shed, when suddenly that weird old man just showed up in my yard uninvited. "Oh, putting together a house, huh? Good thing that flimsy straw hut's still standing, bro. Whether I decide to tear it down is none of your business, you totally bizarre old guy." I yanked a strip of dried pork right off the hanging line and shoved it straight into his hands, Loki losing patience. "Take this snack and get lost, because I've got nothing else for you. Seriously, just leave me alone." I started nudging him firmly toward the front gate, but he just rolled with it, chuckling quietly the whole way. Right as I was about to slam the door shut in his face, he dropped this. "Is your name Yi Chen?" I paused, rolling my eyes. "So what if it is? Go ask anyone in this entire village and they'll confirm my identity. That still doesn't give you the right to move in here." He grabbed the wooden gate to keep it from swinging shut, still flashing a grin. "No need to rush, kid. Honestly, I'm your dedicated servant. Name's Lee Chung-seo, but you can just call me Old Lee. My servant. Man, I'm completely broke and can barely feed myself, so where on earth would I get a servant? Take your sketchy act somewhere else, because I'm definitely not adopting a random old dude. I'm not pulling any scams here, don't you even remember? 4 years ago back then, I was the one who brought you to this village." That specific detail made me freeze up instantly. That was precisely when the other Yi Chen first arrived here. The exact guy who looked like my identical twin, sharing my exact name and everything else. He was simply the unfortunate fellow whose entire life I accidentally inherited when our worlds swapped. I possess practically zero clues regarding that guy's past background. So was he actually someone low-key important? I narrowed my eyes, suspicious. Verbal claims aren't enough proof. Hand over some actual evidence or get off my property. The old man didn't even hesitate, muttering, "Head over to your straw hut. Dig down 3 feet right beneath the left bed leg. A hidden box containing a coiled dragon jade pendant is buried right there. That artifact serves as your undeniable proof of identity. And as for me," he added with a polite bow, "I am your loyal servant, Lee Chung-seo." What I totally failed to realize at that exact moment was that my wife had casually scanned this sketchy old man using her soul power the second she laid eyes on him. The hidden detail she uncovered almost made her eyes go wide. This scruffy, bun-munching, limping old geezer was secretly a third-grade martial god, according to this world's power hierarchy. That level sits multiple entire realms way higher than anything ever seen in this region, like blood condensation or Kai training. 3 stages of return make up the spirit platform core formation, and only once all 3 are unified is it possible to challenge the heavens for the martial god title. Yet this guy right here was one. A powerhouse capable of shattering the very fabric of space was chilling on a rock outside my front gate, gnawing on a steamed bun and claiming to be my personal servant. What on earth was the real Yi Ching's actual background? My gaze bounced back and forth, flicking from the old man to my wife and back to the old man again. You better not be playing me right now. My heart was hammering against my ribs as I snatched up a shovel and bolted inside. What if the original Yi Ching was actually someone crazy important? What if his family sent people to drag me back for some grand family reunion? Then again, taking a good look at this geezer's raggedy-ass clothes, his folks probably aren't loaded. I shoved the bed aside, immediately started digging under the left bedpost, and bam, about 3 feet down my shovel hit something rock solid. Cold sweat instantly broke out all over my forehead. With trembling hands, I hauled out a buried box. The old man had quietly trailed me into the house, sporting a grin like this whole chaotic scene was completely scripted. "See, I wasn't capping at all. I really am your loyal servant. Shut your trap." I grabbed the box, stumbled over to my wife, and stammered out, "Babe, what do I even do? This stuff is way too sus to handle." She just flashed a gentle smile. "Just crack it open." Gritting my teeth hard, I flipped the latch and popped the lid. Nestled inside lay a jade pendant intricately carved with a coiled dragon, faintly pulsing with a mysterious inner glow. And honestly, here is the exact detail that completely broke my brain. I literally had one of these back in my world too, featuring the exact same design. My old man kept it sitting on a dusty shelf, always telling me it was some irreplaceable ancient family heirloom. Don't you dare touch it. That was his entire speech. Two identical dragon pendants, two identical Yi Chens, spanning across two completely parallel worlds. Dropping heavily to his knees on the wooden floor, the old man declared, "Humble servant Li Chun Zio greets the young master." The nervous shaking abruptly stopped as a chilling calm washed over me. Looking down at the kneeling figure before me, I spoke with deadly seriousness. "Cut the crap. Tell me where my family is from, and let's get one thing straight. Every single coin I grind for belongs to my wife and kid, so if you're expecting a handout, keep dreaming." A second later, I realized that sounded kind of harsh. Technically, these guys count as my actual relatives in this realm, so fine, I'll compromise. Max 100 taels and not a single copper more. Whatever's left goes right into baby formula. And Toy's nutrition supplements plus hiring a tutor take the rest. Old Lee nearly lost his balance. "I'm not after cash, man. I just dropped by to see how you're holding up. Nobody's kicking you out the door right this second. Oh sweet, you verified I'm breathing. Now you can bounce. Aren't you even a little curious about your true background? Why on earth would I care when my life is chill? Unless you're about to break the news that my dad's kicking the bucket, and there's a massive fortune of 10 million gold pieces sitting there waiting for me. Spare me. I've seen that cliche a million times. Total cringe. All I want is my wife, my kid, and a cozy bed." Old Lee's face twitched uncontrollably. He opened his mouth, shut it tight, and forced a weak grin. "No way, your family isn't rolling in dough. Just well off then. What are you still doing hanging around here? Feeding an extra person is seriously out of my budget." I casually tossed the dragon pendant over to my wife like it was a hot potato. Old Lee's eyes nearly popped right out of his skull watching that priceless imperial artifact soar across the room. He only unclenched once my wife smoothly snatched it out of the air. He trailed behind me into the kitchen and started kindling the stove fire without being asked. "Let me stay and help out. I'll take care of the cows. Milking the cows is my wife's chore, if you take that over." "What is she supposed to do? I can help build the house instead. You're ancient. If you kick the bucket on the job, I'll have to cover your funeral expenses. I can guard the property. De Hwang," I shouted out. Before suddenly remembering where the heck De Hwang was, I left him hanging out in the yard this morning. De Hwang. A streak of golden fur came hurtling over the 2-meter backyard fence from outside and slammed into the dirt with a massive wild chicken clamped firmly in his jaws, bigger than his whole body. He sprinted straight to my boots, dropped his prize proudly, and began doing happy little circles around me while wagging his tail. I squatted down, cradled his fluffy face, and grinned from ear to ear. "Did you go out hunting all by yourself and actually bag a chicken this massive? You're getting a giant chicken leg tonight." "Buddy," I pivoted toward Old Lee. "See, I've got the guard covered. He protects the house and brings home dinner. What possible use do I have for you?" "Right, De Hwang." De Hwang's ears shot straight up as he sat at absolute attention, lifted his chin high, and let out his signature "oh bark." Old Lee stared hard at the hound, then glanced back at me looking deeply wounded that a mutt had totally replaced him with a heavy sigh. He insisted, "No matter what you say, I'm not leaving another 20 minutes." Vanished in a stubborn argument with him. Refusing to budge an inch, he stood his ground completely defeated. I finally threw together a makeshift straw shelter for him right beside the cow shed. "You're only allowed to crash here because you're technically on the family payroll as a servant. So don't push your luck." "All right," stamping my feet, I marched to the backyard to get my veg patch started. Seeds were bought and soil prepped, leaving zero time to waste. Deep in the middle of my digging, Old Lee approached my wife, bowing low, and murmured, "Madam, please make sure the young master wears this dragon pendant as a family heirloom. Keeping it on him is crucial." Only much later did the full story of what happened come to light. Taking a glance at the pendant, she dropped a line that almost gave Old Lee a minor heart attack. She casually brought up the hidden dragon vein energy locked inside, something only top-tier cultivators even knew existed. Then with a quick flick of her wrist, she summoned 9 colossal streams of imperial dragon energy stretching across the entire continent and crammed them straight into the trinket like she was simply topping off a water bottle in a split second. Old Lee transformed from a hazy old man into an intensely sharp warrior. Demanding, "Who are you? What level is your cultivation?" she replied, "I'm just his wife. He says I'm a basic chi training Taoist. Wouldn't you agree?" Staring at her intently for a prolonged moment, Old Lee saw his gaze fog over again and bowed deeply, declaring, "Old servant sees absolutely nothing. Old servant knows absolutely nothing," she advised him as she turned to walk away. "He has his own path. Focus on your job and stop meddling right while I was busy hoeing the dirt." She brought the pendant, telling me to wear this. I looked at it dangling from her fingers, asking, "You want me to put it on?" She answered, "It's yours. Just throw it on," smiling as she looped it around my neck, holding up the glowing dragon jade. I squinted at it closely. This accessory looks pretty bougie. I wonder how much quick cash I could flip it for giving me the absolute coldest glare of the entire day. She turned on her heel and walked off without a word, chuckling softly. I went right back to my digging. Glancing at me for roughly 30 seconds straight, Wang suddenly sprinted over and started digging too, with his little front paws spinning like tiny turbines. He carved out a crater in no flat time, prompting me to say, Wang, when did you learn how to garden? What a good boy." I brought some water and we totally locked in as a team. Me digging away, him digging right beside me, both of us excavating holes like pros. Seeds were planted by my hand before I started blanketing them in rich soil. Wang watched closely, then sprinted over to start flinging dirt backward with his hind legs, except he wasn't covering any seeds. Instead, he was launching loose dirt and seeds everywhere, straight up, acting like a chaotic sprinkler system of destruction. "Dude, stop, you're literally ruining everything." Oh man, he just kicked harder while the seeds flew everywhere. A heavy, wet clump of mud suddenly slapped right against my leg. I grabbed Wang firmly by the scruff, dropped him straight into a massive wooden bucket, and pointed aggressively at his face. "Stay locked in that bucket until I give you permission to crawl out." He sat right inside the bucket, whimpering softly like I had just slapped him with a life sentence. By evening time, the entire backyard had been successfully mapped out, with every single vegetable assigned to its own designated zone. It honestly looked like a professional-grade farming layout. Dinner was followed by a quick cleanup before I totally crashed into bed. Then boom, a deafening crack of thunder. It was the very first thunderstorm since my arrival, and Wang, having literally never heard thunder in his life, launched himself straight up into the air and landed square on my face. "It's just thunder. Calm down, buddy." I peeled him off my face and tucked him safely next to my pillow. Then the rain started hammering down, and within a matter of minutes, the fragile straw roof began leaking. Right down the middle of the dim hut, a steady stream of water poured between my bed and my wife's bed, running wild like a full-blown indoor waterfall. I glanced across the misty room at my wife through a thick curtain of rainwater and spoke with as much dignity as I could possibly summon. "Babe, just bear with this vibe for one more night. Tomorrow morning we start building the actual house, I promise you." I drifted into a deep sleep to the soundtrack of last night's rain. Upon waking up, my pup Wang was already back to licking my face. I grabbed him quickly and gave him a warning. If he had just gone to the bathroom before licking me, I'd straight up cut his tongue out. Obviously, I wouldn't actually do it, but still, super gross. A good morning stretch made me feel amazing and totally refreshed. However, stepping outside revealed that the entire yard was a muddy mess from the storm. Awesome, more backbreaking chores for me. Oldly strolled in carrying a fresh bundle of grass for the cow. I told him to stop feeding it, because taking care of the cow is my wife's job. She's currently pregnant and genuinely needs the daily exercise. Oldly got insanely hyped up the moment he heard about the baby. Even more than me, which was low-key driving me crazy out of nowhere, he started rambling about hunting down wild chickens to boost my wife's nutrition for the baby. I told him to chill out since it was my kid. And all why on earth was he stressing harder than me right after that old Lee shoved a battered little booklet into my hands, claiming he had just stumbled across it lying right on the dirt road called 9 Dragon Body Refining Technique. I totally snorted at such a cheesy title, yet I still handed it over to my wife Qin Yu Jing to inspect, given that she was a seasoned Dao master. After flipping through the pages and tweaking a few flaws here and there, she declared, "It was honestly way superior to my current routine." My jaw dropped, because some random trash found on the highway turned out to be legit gold. I gave old Lee a massive shout-out for that, and dove straight into reading it, discovering that a single dragon's worth of raw strength amounted to a crazy 120,000 jin of force, which totally hyped me up. Though the absolute second I actually tried running the drills, every single ounce of energy got sucked right out of my system. I honestly felt like I was about to shrivel up into a crisp if I pushed it any further. Gasping for air and a cold sweat, I slammed the brakes immediately. This brutal technique demands a mountain of high-end supplements to sustain it, meaning I needed cash because life always circles right back to money. Shaking off the fatigue, I started mixing cement after breakfast to lay down some masonry, while still feeling completely hollowed out from that botched training session. Then the rhythmic clatter of hooves echoed as Liu Yunbao rolled up an acquaintance of mine, flanked by a squad of 8 or 9 rough-looking guys. He flashed a grin and claimed they came to pitch in on my house. I was ecstatic, especially since my stamina was completely shot talk about free labor. So I ended up drilling a bunch of menacing bandits on how to stack bricks and slap on mortar, standing tall like a strict foreman while nearby. Old Lee kicked back with a very satisfied smirk on his face. He probably viewed this shady bunch as the early blueprint for my future inner circle, which wasn't a terrible vibe, honestly. To keep things straight, I rigged up a makeshift plumb line using a pebble and a string, so the boys would instantly know if their masonry work started leaning sideways. My wife calmly led our 2 cows out to pasture, while we sweated it out. Those hardened outlaws were breaking their backs at it, even though I could totally tell their spines were screaming from all the heavy lifting. All of a sudden, old Lee spotted a nervous kid sneaking glances into the courtyard. He looked super scrawny with an oversized noggin, clutching a pair of clucking hens, shaking like a leaf under the bright sun, went by the name of Zhao Erniu, whose father had dispatched him over with those birds as a peace offering while desperately begging me to accept him as a disciple and show him the ropes on hunting. I shot down the idea of him being my disciple. At just 23 or 24, I'm honestly way too young for that kind of gig. Still, I agreed to teach him how to hunt. When I told him to take those chickens home, he totally freaked out. The kid was terrified his old man would give him a beatdown with a stick if he showed up with them. Giving in, I let him stash the birds in the cow pen. Besides, we needed more protein for the whole crew I had working for me. So I grabbed a couple of axes, handed one to him, and we started hiking up the mountain. De Huang tagged along with us, too. On the way, I gave him the lowdown. Hunting's mostly just luck. I pointed out where my traps were, but last night's downpour had trashed every single one. Suddenly, a wild rabbit bolted out from the brush. De Hong took off after it, and the bunny, in a blind panic, slammed right into a tree stump. After it flipped, De Hong dragged it over to me, wagging his tail, clearly fishing for a good boy. I gave him a quick pat and handed the rabbit to Aaron Yo as a little welcome present. He tried to play modest, but I shoved it into his arms anyway. I'm a hunter, man, as if I'd sweat missing a single rabbit. I showed him the trap setup, taught him how to bail if things went south, and warned him to stay away from the deep mountain terrain. There's a 4-meter-long tiger lurking in there that nearly finished me off last time. Then I stepped away to take a leak. While I was standing there, I caught sight of a massive bear, easily 4 meters long, crawling into a distant cave. My heart started thumping against my ribs. That's deep in the danger zone, but bear paw is supposed to be one of the most legit delicacies on the planet. I tightened my belt, locking in my decision. I'm going for it. With 1,600 gene of strength under my belt, if I play it smart, I might just be able to take this beast down. I sprinted back to recruit Aaron Yo to help dig a pit. I'm not crazy enough to brawl with a 4-meter bear face-to-face. Getting slapped by that thing would either end me or leave me totally wrecked. See, the difference between us and the animals is that we've got brains to use. Roughly 100 meters out from the bear's den, I carved out some shovel-shaped tools from tree trunks. Using my raw power, the 3 of us, me, Aaron Yo, and De Huang, started digging away. Digging a pit roughly 2 meters deep was all I really needed to do here before I carved out a bunch of tough wooden stakes into sharp points and planted 8 of those bad boys right at the bottom of the hole. A clever swinging log trap was also set up by me to lock down the area by securing a sturdy rope to a massive, sharpened tree trunk, which hung high from an overhead branch, so letting go of the rope would trigger it and send the heavy log swooping down in a flash with enough raw power to utterly devastate whatever unfortunate target happened to be standing in its path. Plus, I sharpened a few long tree trunks to act as backup spears just in case things got crazy. There was 0 chance I was getting close enough to swing a regular axe to conceal the trap. Completely a camouflage of thin branches and scattered grass was laid over the pit before Aaron Yo was instructed to climb a nearby tree and stay out of sight. The kid shinned up the trunk like it was an absolute breeze, bragging that snatching bird nests from branches had been his specialty ever since he was knee-high, stepping over toward the dark cave entrance next. I started hurling rocks inside, though absolute silence met my throws at first. De Huang, that wildly reckless dog, suddenly bolted straight into the cave interior. A furious shout was barked by me, telling him to retreat, only for a thunderous, enraged roar to erupt as De Huang came flying back out of the shadows with a massive bear hot on his heels. Sprinting toward my trap, while the beast chased me for a brief second, I noticed it suddenly starting to slow down and retreat, allowing that escape was definitely not an option. So I snatched up a sharp stone and nailed it squarely in the rear. Total bullseye, driving the bear completely berserk. The hit sent it charging right at me once more, reaching the disguised pit. I cleared it with a massive 5-meter leap, while De Huang zipped safely off to the side. Running blindly forward, the furious bear plunged straight into the trap and smashed right through, though most of its heavy bulk dropped into the pit. It immediately began scrambling to claw its way out. Dashing over instantly, I yanked the rope free and sent the giant, sharpened log hurtling downward to crash directly into the bear's skull with devastating impact. Crushing its head completely, the job was done, So I heaved the carcass back to the yard and hacked off roughly 60 to 70 jin of prime meat for Aaron Yo to haul back home. Stubbornly trying to refuse, the kid muttered that he hadn't actually contributed anything before a solid smack was delivered to his head, by me telling him to zip it and accept the gift. Word reached me later that Aaron Yo carrying all that heavy meat through the village lanes had stirred up quite a massive scene, as some obnoxious busybody named Joe Zua attempted to snatch a cut of his supply while trashing my reputation by whining that I was totally selfish for keeping the bounty from the rest of the villagers. Thankfully, Aaron Yo stood his ground for me and even delivered a swift kick to her right before his father showed up, and things escalated into absolute chaos. That kid's low-key way tougher than he looks. Selecting a few massive ribs alongside around 60 to 70 jin of bear meat, I set off to deliver it to village head Jiangxiu, only to find absolute chaos unfolding right upon my arrival. That notorious troublemaker Zhu Zhu was already throwing hands with Aaron Yao's household over the very meat I handed over. She even had the nerve to claim I laced it with poison. While the village chief was frantically trying to de-escalate the whole mess, I bellowed at everyone to pipe down and marched right past Zhou Tsuhua without sparing her a single glance. Dropping the meat straight into the village chief's hands, I let him know it was a token of appreciation for his years of looking out for me. He hesitated, stressing it might look like favoritism, but I forced it into his grip before he could even object. That was my cue to make a power play, announcing my grand plan to launch a brick kiln by the riverbanks behind the village. I pointed out that while solo brick-making is a solid hustle, we'd all rake in way more cash if we teamed up. Dropping an offer of 20 long-term gigs paying 21 wen daily, I instantly grabbed everyone's undivided attention. Tough manual labor in town barely nets 2 wen a day, whereas this paid 21 without even stepping foot out of the village. People started crunching numbers, totaling a sweet 600 wen monthly, surpassing 7 taels of silver yearly, which absolutely crushes farming. Hands shot up into the air in a heartbeat, promising to have the contracts drafted by the afternoon with the village chief acting as our official witness. I revealed that this brick kiln had been in the works for ages, and today was simply the exact right moment to drop it. Upon returning home and briefing my wife on the hustle, she hit me with a single question that dead stopped me in my tracks. Do you even have paper and a pen? Neither I nor the village chief had any on hand, and frankly, not a single soul in the village did either. Spotting Lu Yunbao's horse, I initially planned to borrow it, but glancing over at the sweating bandits toiling shirtless in the blistering heat alongside the half-butchered bear, I opted to stay and whip up a feast instead, handing Lu Yunbao 10 taels of silver with instructions to score about 100 sheets of paper and drop the remaining balance on potent booze. Good food and drinks are essential to keep workers grinding hard, and plus, since these guys had been constructing my walls pro bono, treating them right was the least I could do. Running a quick mental calculation on the brick kiln, I figured 20 workers would cost 400 wen daily in total wages, while churning out a single batch of 10,000 bricks would take roughly a week. Selling the whole thing brings in a solid 10 taels total, deducting 3 taels for wages, leaves 7 taels of pure profit, not too shabby at all. Honestly, right after that, I let my wife know I would need her backup this afternoon. With a puzzled look, she asked me what I was talking about while busy skinning the bear. The employment contract concept was laid out to my wife by me. Her response was that drafting one was beyond her skills, assuring her it was a breeze. I promised to show her the ropes, pacing around and begging for meat. The H-Wang kept circling us, so a chunk was tossed his way by yours truly, giving it a quick sniff. The little guy flat out rejected it, such a spoiled dog refusing to eat anything raw. A metal rack was set up by me out in the yard, and I kicked off roasting the bear meat over the flames. Feeding a massive crew like this would take forever if I relied on boiling pot after pot. 4 giant pots of rice had already been steamed by old Li, weighing around 1,000 jin. That bear provided more than enough food. All the big bones were saved by me for soup later. On back came Liu Yunbao carrying the paper along with ink and 7 or 8 jugs of liquor. Paper and writing brushes turned out to cost a pretty penny, spending 6 taels. He returned with some foreign change in hand, telling him to keep it as a thank you for pitching in. I roasted all 4 bear paws until they turned golden and dripped with oil. A dash of spices was added, making it insanely good. Everyone huddled around, eating and drinking away. Even old Li was chilling with the tough guys over there, chatting it up like they went way back, carrying a bear paw indoors. It was handed to my wife. She tried eating it all fancy-like, using her chopsticks, but I let her know she needed to use her bare hands, giving in. She started nibbling at it with her fingertips, snatching the mirror right after I showed her the oil smeared on her cheek. Causing her to blush hard, she gave my arm a smack and told me to get lost. Chuckling out loud, I headed back out to join the party once everyone finished eating, and resting up 20 work contracts were drawn up together by my wife and me. Her penmanship was genuinely gorgeous, calling her my little wifey to her face. For the very first time, made her roll her eyes at me, pulling the gate open. Way more than 20 villagers were standing outside. Having gone home earlier, they crunched the numbers and realized how lucrative this gig was. Even Jo Tsu-hua showed up, grabbing tightly onto my sleeve, demanding that I sign up both her husband and son immediately. Otherwise, I owed her 41 a day, so I seriously needed to thin out the crowd. So I rolled up with the biggest, baddest-looking ruffian I could find. He was a towering, 2-meter-tall bald guy built like an absolute tank, announcing to the crowd. I declared this giant would be their new foreman, while letting them know that anyone brave enough should step up right now. The cowards in the crowd immediately backed off. 23 people stepped up, and having 3 extra was totally fine. Since Jo Tsuawa's husband and son hadn't bothered to step forward, she started screeching at me, claiming I owed her big time and demanding I include them or pay her double. Seriously unbelievable. Right in front of everyone, I put Jo Tsu-hua firmly in her place. She argued she had always been good to me, but I shot back asking her when she had ever even offered me a single cup of water. Her only move was shamelessly begging for my stuff. Telling her to scram, I watched her try to lunge at me in a rage, only for the bald giant to step forward and scare her so badly. She fell flat on her butt, fleeing in sheer terror, while screaming at the top of her lungs that my brick kiln was destined to flop, reassuring the remaining crowd. I announced the 23 spots were filled for now, though I promised to hire more once we scale up. That instantly chilled everyone out. Spotting Aaron Yo among the 23 caught my attention. His dad probably figured steady pay beats, wandering around hunting, clarifying the earlier intimidation stunt. I explained it was just a low-key test of grit. I also dropped the news about a forming position coming up, paying 10 extra a day, and awarded fairly based on pure hustle, inviting the village chief over next. I had him witness the contract signing ceremony. Every single person signed and stamped their fingerprints in bare blood, because I didn't happen to have any red ink on hand. Work was scheduled to kick off in a week, during which time they would help construct the kiln for 3 a day, which was still way better than the 2 they'd make slaving away at hard labor down in town, watching me handle everything like a boss. My wife wore a gentle smile. Old Lee sat sipping wine with a proud look on his face. The village chief looked genuinely shocked by my foundation plans, assuming the house would span about 100 square meters. Actually, I was plotting something way bigger. A 3-story beast featuring a rooftop pavilion where my wife and I could chill and soak in the views. That setup sounded like an absolute vibe. Scouting a spot by the river for the kiln, we locked it in roughly 100 meters away from the village, giving me a heads up. The chief warned about a powerful Wang family in town that had dominated the brick-selling game for over a century. Brushing it off, I told him not to sweat it, and that I'd chat with them if needed. Heading back home along the trail, I caught sight of the villages. 3 notorious troublemakers out of nowhere, Dago, Ergo, and Sango, were low-key stalking around my yard. Before I knew it, they came crawling up to me and started owning up to all the past drama they had caused. Gigs at the brick kiln were what they were after. The regular spots were completely maxed out. I let them know, yet I still needed reliable guards for the kiln to make sure nobody tried to pull a fast one on the bricks. 5 grand a day each was the deal, plus living on site. 3 separate rooms were going to be built for them by me. I added straight down to his knees dropped Dago, who immediately began slapping his own face in regret, claiming my kindness was way more than he deserved. Hitting the dirt right beside him, where the other 2 having their own rooms, was something they had never even dreamed of, let alone the wild thought of ever tying the knot someday. Shaking off the dramatics, I told them to get up and hustle hard while stacking their bread, so maybe next year finding wives would actually be a vibe. Stepping up their game was what they needed to do to keep their future kids from turning out like them. Rumor reached me later on that Dago gave his brothers a super intense pep talk about loyalty, declaring my business was officially their business now. Then Ergo, the sharpest of the bunch, pitched a plan to go jump Jo Tsua's family for constantly messing with me. Right across the head, Dago smacked him before agreeing that he was totally right, and off they sprinted. A massive brawl broke out involving Jo Tsua's crew that night, clashing head-on with Dago and his brothers, making enough noise for the entire neighborhood to tune in. Meanwhile, the walls of my house were already standing over a meter high, progressing way quicker than expected for a massive 130 square meter layout, featuring 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms to boot. Showing up tomorrow with his big brother and third brother to lend a hand was what Liu Yunbao promised, which I deeply appreciated. Handling this solo would have easily dragged on for 2 months. Pulling a stubborn chunk of mud out of my hair once they left, I realized another hunting run was mandatory for tomorrow. Living off purely bare meat won't sustain this many people. Old Lee's wine got confiscated by me right before crashing the old man through a minor fit about it. Yet he passed out snoring within seconds come the next morning. My eyes snapped open just before the H-Wang could start licking me, grabbing him by the scruff. I literally chucked him off the bed, Beating the dog to the wake-up call finally happened. While drying my damp hair after a quick wash, my weapon of choice was suddenly questioned by my wife. Without missing a beat, a long spear was my instant pick. Extended reach equals a much safer distance. Let's be real honestly, staying way out of the danger zone is just my vibe. With a quick nod and a flick of her wrist, a massive tree trunk was ripped right through the air, instantly snapping into a flawless 2-meter wooden staff. Next thing I knew, she ordered me to do the splits, and I got totally low-key hyped. My wife, the supreme DAO master herself, was finally about to put me through the ringer. I started sliding my legs apart, though my tendons were literally screaming halfway down. Down came her staff, whacking my calf brutally, and I immediately crashed all the way to the floor. Agony flared up in 3 different spots simultaneously, making me feel like I was being ripped clean in half. According to her, real warriors have to endure pure suffering to level up. To take the edge off the pain, I immediately started circulating my inner chi energy, which actually helped a little bit. Yet before I could even flex about that small win, she tied heavy ropes around both of my ankles and hoisted me upside down from the construction scaffolding, leaving my legs locked wide open in an extreme full split. We are talking way past 180 degrees, easily pushing an insane 240. Her command was simple: flip my entire body upright using nothing but my legs, and hold that position for a solid hour before she would even consider letting me down. I thrashed and cried out, since every single muscle fiber adjustment sent blinding pain straight through my groin and thighs. Out of nowhere, the H-Wang bounded over and started licking my face enthusiastically, which completely threw off my center of gravity. Down I swung, flipping upside down all over again and forcing me to restart. My wife casually finished up her breakfast, handed the wooden staff over to old Lee with instructions to babysit me, and strolled off to graze the cows like it was nothing. Snatching that staff up, old Lee crept toward me wearing the most cursed, evil grin. Right as I finally hauled myself back upright, he began jabbing me right in the chest with the stick, wobbling it back and forth to mess with me. Freaking out completely, I desperately offered to hand his prized wine back, but he just chuckled, claiming that hardcore training beat out booze any day of the week. Clearly, the old guy was absolutely loving every single second of my misery. Old Lee kept knocking me flat on my back with that annoying stick, forcing me to strain through agonizing tears to flip back up each time. Yet after roughly 15 minutes of torture, I could actually take his sharp shoves without getting toppled over. Talk about some major character development. Feeling cocky, I decided to challenge him, dropping a sarcastic remark asking why he didn't give it a shot himself if he thought he was so tough. Without missing a beat, the old man casually swung his supposedly injured leg straight up past his head, effortlessly clearing 240 degrees while sipping his wine, before lowering it smoothly. My mouth stayed welded shut after that, until the Black Horse gang suddenly rolled up. This time around, all 3 brothers showed up. Minyu, Liu Yunbao, and He Minsheng, alongside their crew, joined in making a massive team of 15 working hard right on my house, moving like a legit construction squad. Liu and Bao actually schooled their big brother on bricklaying, repeating the exact same lines. I had told them earlier before sprinting off to watch him totally mess it up. Turns out both of them had totally bombed at it previously, and desperately wanted their sibling to share the awkward L. Down by the riverbank where the brothers were busy, the village chief had laborers constructing my kiln. Even the 3 former village bullies pitched in to help out, acting unusually chill and well-behaved. Every single one of us was totally baffled. Suddenly, a horse carriage pulled right up outside my yard. It turned out to be Ju Mushua, that wealthy town girl who low-key refuses to leave me alone, accompanied by her friend Jung Keo. Spotting me hanging upside down in the afternoon sun, completely drenched in sweat, surrounded by a bunch of rough-looking dudes, she totally freaked out. She immediately assumed I had been snatched by bandits, tears streaming down her face. She sprinted over screaming my name, and tried cutting me loose while I bluntly told her to get lost. Old Lee casually shoved her back using his walking stick. Panicking further, she commanded her 4 armed guards to take out the bandits. He Minsheng leaped over 30 feet into the air in a single bound, shouting out his identity and scaring them out of their minds, losing my cool completely. I snapped that I'd stated it 100 times. I am not interested in her. I already have a wife. We are expecting a baby soon, and she needs to back off. Hearing that, her friend Jing Keo started screaming at me, arguing that Zhao Mushue was gorgeous and filthy rich. so I should ditch my country girl wife instantly and marry up into their elite family instead. Right at that exact second, my wife walked back home after herding the cows, catching every single word. Her expression turned stone cold. Even the little bird perched on her shoulder shivered in fear my wife's killer aura instantly spiked. And I hit absolute boiling point furious that young Ko had the nerve to insult my better half. I ordered old Lee to cut me down on the spot, and this time he actually complied without joking around. All the Black Horse brothers grabbed spare bricks and aggressively marched over two wobbling on shaky legs from the brutal leg-split training, my muscles still throbbing and screaming in agony. I stepped forward to lay down the law, making it clear I do not care if her dad is the county magistrate. If she dares utter one more disrespectful word about my woman, she dared me to try. But crawling out of my yard is the only thing she'll be doing. My hand was raised to strike back when Manhwa suddenly clutched my arm in tears, begging me to hit her instead. Brushing her off roughly, I told her to get lost. Just looking at her makes me nauseous. Everything that happened was overheard by my wife from outside. Somehow my words managed to chill her hot head right down. She had been ready to catch a body, yet hearing me stand up for her completely changed her vibe. With total poise, she stepped inside while Manhwa and her crying friend retreated, though Manhwa still insists on marrying nobody but me. I seriously don't get her logic. The second my wife walked through that door, absolute panic set in and I begged old Lee to haul me right back up. Flipping myself upright, I flexed and flashed a grin. "Look, honey, I've totally mastered it now." She chuckled softly, calling it not bad. Meanwhile, all the bandits spotted her and scurried back to work looking petrified. She terrifies them way more than I ever could. Caked in mud, the H-Wang bounded over to me, instantly launching into a face-licking session. When I asked my wife if the mutt had been eating garbage, she shrugged, suggesting I ask the furry guy myself. Gee, thanks for that ultimate piece of wisdom. Having survived a full hour dangling, my legs felt completely detached from my body afterward, though I eventually managed to stand. Down by the river, I went to inspect the kiln construction progress. Everything looked solid. Crystal clear water made it easy to spot fish darting around. An inspiration struck. Dashing home, I convinced my wife to join me for an impromptu fishing trip. She agreed, so armed with a bucket and a sharpened stick, I led her to the shallows. My first few stabs at the fish missed entirely. She thrust her spear once and nailed one on try number 1, then reeled in 10 more while I was still stuck on a lonely single catch. To make matters even more humiliating, the H-Wang plunged into the current and emerged triumphantly with a massive turtle clamped in his jaws. Getting outfished by my own dog is a whole new low. Before long, I coaxed my wife out of the river, claiming the chilly water wasn't good for the baby. In truth, I just couldn't handle the cringe anymore. For the very first time, I addressed her as Bower, meaning baby. Perched on her shoulder, the tiny spirit bird looked utterly horrified that I would actually dare say such a thing. An eyebrow arched upward on my wife's face as she demanded to know what I had just called her. Standing my ground, I proudly repeated, "Bower, you're my absolute treasure, aren't you?" A quiet smile crossed her face as she turned away. Then I whispered low, "Maybe this split stretching hasn't quite wrecked my legs enough yet." Fast backtracking, and a quick apology followed right after. Yet wifey's vibe meter crept up 5% more, hitting a solid 40% overall, striding back into the chilly water. I was low-key obsessed with bagging a fish. My spot was right where my wife had just been standing, sure as heck. Fins were darting everywhere, swinging down with zero hesitation. I totally missed. Meanwhile, that dog H-Wang hauled out turtle number 6. How on earth does that hound spot every single one while I'm striking out completely? Some solid advice dropped from my wife. Just chill out, read the current's rhythm, and strike in that microsecond of pure opportunity. Same vibe as combat. Breathing deep helped me reset spotting a target. I held my breath and jammed the stick down hard. A smug grin crossed my face, feeling like I nailed it, but pulling up showed zilch. That fish was long gone, crafting a lame excuse about being way too soft-hearted to end a fish's life, made retreating to the bank easy, before I grabbed another bucket to hunt down river snails instead. At least those slowpokes aren't swimming away anytime. Soon, filling half the bucket happened in a heartbeat. Just as my wife called me back over, her bucket was already overflowing with fish. My ego took a massive, soul-crushing hit. Returning home meant tackling the cleanup duty. Snapping the snail tails off with my bare fingers was next. Pure brute strength made it effortless. Tossing them into rendering pork fat with fiery red chilies filled the air with an insanely good aroma. Not a single soul in the village had ever tasted snails before. Simmering those turtles into a nourishing soup for my wife was priority top-tier fuel for the baby settling down to grub, with the Black Horse crew brought new chaos, having zero clue what snails were. Yahello launched one right into his mouth and crunched straight through the hard shell. The whole squad was munching them like crunchy snack shells. and all claiming the flavor slapped hard even if they were a bit gritty, staring at them like they lost their minds, prompted me to school them on how to properly suck the meat out. Awkward side-eyes bounced around the table before Liu Yanbao swiftly pivoted the vibe by hoisting his wine bowl high. Carrying a bowl of turtle soup and prime bear cuts to my wife yielded a quick sip, a brief good, and a prompt order to go eat my own dinner. Classic wife material. Never wasting unnecessary words as days flew by, my split-stretching flexibility, leveled up majorly hanging upside down for a solid hour or two daily, will definitely do that to you.